Mute everybody, Rich. Rich, you're muted.
Steve.
Everybody.
Steve.
Yes. Hi, Rich. How are you?
Nice to see you, man.
Yeah, nice to see you too. Long time no see.
Ever since the plaque days.
Well, I think you're right. That's probably about the last time. There we go.
There you go. All right, introduce yourself to the rest of the crew here.
Well, I'd love to. I'm Steve Hemphill. I'm the licensee of WA2XMN, the Major Armstrong's Memorial FM broadcast station over at the Alpine Tower site. And probably a few of you guys have probably come over and done tours with us over there, or you at least listened to us on 42.8 megahertz from time to time. But unfortunately, we're off the air right now because we have some antenna line issues over there, but I'm hoping to resolve those, and I'll let you guys know when we get things squared away. But yeah, so there we are.
Well, on a sidebar, Steve, we'd love to have you join our club, you know?
Well, thank you. This is really an honor for you to have invited me. Al kind of got me all set up with Zoom the other night, and I had a couple little issues with it, but it seems to be working fine now. You know, it's just great idea that you guys are doing this.
Well, this is how we keep in contact, and it's a wonderful thing, and we're going to continue using it even when we finally get to shake hands with each other once again.
Yeah, it's great. It's an excellent idea. It really is. And in fact, I tried to reach Dave Terwilliger the other night to tell him about it. I think he said he's waiting for a webcam interface of some kind. So I think did he tell me that you guys record this and then you run it on YouTube the next day. So I think that's what Dave told me. And that way he'll be able to see the meeting and see what you guys are up to and what you're doing and everything.
Correct. Not exactly the next day, but it will be on YouTube. Correct.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, that's cool.
And I've got a webcam for Dave. I'm going to give it to him. Send it to him at least.
Oh, good for you, Rich. That's wonderful. I'm sure he'll love that. I'm expected to talk to him tonight. If you want, I'll pass that on to him.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I will.
All right, Steve. Let me move along. Any other new faces in the crowd? Anybody else new that we don't know about? Who's just dropping by?
Well, not dropping by, but Ross Folk here. I've been a member for a while. Can't usually make it to the Friday night meetings, but Zoom is a great avenue for me to join because I live in northwestern New Jersey, and trying to travel down to the meetings is a little tough.
Well, Ross, nice to see you. No, I can't say I've ever seen you. Have we ever seen you?
I've met you a couple of times at the swap meet down south with the ARC swap meet, and I think Parsippany Hamfest. I think maybe I've seen you there, but I don't remember that. I wouldn't swear to that. But
that's not a problem. We're both old guys, so you know it's hard to remember. But yes. I'm glad you made it Zooming with us.
Thank you.
Okay, let me move along here onto our infirmary report. Well, as opposed to last month's meeting, this month is on a happier note. Member Steve Calandra is out of the hospital, out of rehab, and he's home. And he is cured of his coronavirus. And he's happy as hell. I spoke to him this afternoon, and it's just a distant memory for him. He says it was no fun, but he beat it, and he's very, very happy to be out of it all. Now, I was going to report on member Bruce Diadamo, but I see Bruce here. Are you there, Bruce? Hello, Bruce.
Unmute.
Unmute. Hello, Bruce.
Unmute me. I believe I'm unmuted. How are you this evening?
There you are, Bruce. Hey, man.
I discovered the unmute button, and all is well with me, so I am very happy to be back. And
could you just give a little synopsis of what you've been through, Bruce?
Yeah, I was diagnosed with multiple myeloma a few years back, and I had a bone marrow transplant in March, and so far, so good. So I have another few years to go to see how it all works out, but in the first 50 days, things seem to be going well. It's not the best way I would spend a 3-week vacation, but I can tell you the people at Hackensack Medical Center know what they're doing. These people are very, very good. I can highly recommend them for pretty much anything you might need.
Bruce, it's great to see you, man. It's really great.
It's great to be back.
Great, wonderful. Okay. Now, there was another patient here, but I see him. He's Zooming with us tonight. Dr. Forte, how are you doing?
Good. I'm fine. Got some AFib issues, but it's not as serious as I first thought. And I'm getting all the help that I can. Tired, very tired, but no complaints. Absolutely no complaints. And I want to thank Al Clace for setting me up. This is the first meeting. This is the first time I'm ever really using Zoom. So it's a whole new venture. Glad to see all you guys. And I'll just be listening in.
All right, great to have you. Great to have you with us, Doctor. Wonderful. Okay, is there anybody I should be known about that should be on this list that I don't know about? Anybody can tell me? I hope you don't tell me of anybody. That would be a very good thing, but there's always somebody. Anyway, if there is anybody, just PM me, please, okay? All right, on to old business. Oh, I have to mention, there will not be a 50-50 drawing tonight. I was just too embarrassed for winning all that money last month at the April meeting, so I just can't have another 50-50 drawing. It'll be too embarrassing because I just don't want to win again like that. All right, so there's no drawing. All right, okay. All right, unfortunately, I have to talk about dues in the 5th month of the year. Not happy about that, but I really have to do it. And I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but dues are due. And I believe Marcia can tell us we're about 60 people down. Is that correct, Marcia?
We have 168 paid out of, I believe, 227.
Yeah. So you do the math, it's about 60. That's not good. I understand the situations and all, but again, it's the lifeblood of our club. And again, I'm preaching to the choir, but what will happen is I'll be sending out postcards like I did a few years back to all the members that are in arrears, because we just want to know who's who's a member in good standing. It's really important.
Rich, excuse me. Hey, Marcia, does that include the people that don't have to pay dues?
Yes, it does. It includes honorary members. It includes lifetime members that don't pay dues every year.
Rich,
So wait a minute. So the 167 includes all the non-payees and paid.
I don't know exactly what you mean. Do you mean there's 227 about on the list? Out of those, 168 are considered current. The current people include people who have paid dues for this year and people who are lifetime members and people who are honorary members.
Okay, got it. That's all I wanted to know.
Okay.
Like I said, it's about 60 people haven't paid, and the cards will go out this week. Okay, all right, enough of that. We don't want to talk money right now. But since we have Marvin right there, okay, I do hope everybody has read this May's Jersey Broadcaster. Marv has done it again and produced more of a magazine than a newsletter this month. Tons of information, okay? Mike Shaw suggested doing a download of Radio Garden, which I think most of us have by now. It's a great site for international AM/FM radio listening, pretty much on any device you want to use, okay? The sad news that Gary Schneider of Playthings from the Past died this past month, but we understand that someone else is taking over that venue and will still be selling his wares. And it's good to see that the business will continue. Now, Bill Hemphill, who's not related to Steve Hemphill that I know of, suggests visiting archives.org for vintage radio shows and ephemera. Then there's a controversy over the real David Sarnoff telephone key that Al Clays has been going back and forth on the communicator about. Very interesting. I don't think we've ever gotten to the bottom of it all. And then the story of member Red Riff's generous donation of the self-winding wall clock to the RTM, which is a great story that Ray Chase put together. And when we eventually get back into the RTM, we'll be able to see it. And member Vic Dowdell, the story of the Stromberg-Carlson car radios, which I don't think many of us knew about. And of course, then there's member James O'Neill's in-depth account of vintage ARC transmitters, which is only part 1. There'll be part 2. So it was a lot of good reading. Okay. All right, this past month, the president of the Canadian Vintage Radio Society, Jerry O'Hara, contacted me. He was asking our club, would they be interested in reciprocating their newsletter with our Jersey broadcaster? So I asked Marv about it, and Marv said it was a great idea to exchange, and that he spoke highly of the articles that are written by that society. So that's what we'll be doing. And I was perusing their website to the point where I really enjoyed their articles and what they were doing up there, to the point where I joined the society myself. Now there's a little canard to that, because it's $20 Canadian. Well, guess what? The exchange comes out to be $14.75 US. So that was a real bargain. Okay. And okay, thanks to technical coordinator Al Clays, many members have been Zooming together during the week, sharing radio-related problems and just yakking, which has been a lot of fun too. Al sends out the invitations, so be sure to join in. Okay. All right, also this past month, we had an emergency e-board meeting to discuss the problems InfoAge is experiencing being closed to the public, which is a big problem, meaning no money coming in, all right? Our club and others under the umbrella of the InfoAge have agreed to donate $1,000 to help pay some of their bills, which when you think about it is just a drop in the bucket. But it's something we had to do, and we felt important that we did it. Not to say that any of you, any of us club members would like to donate to InfoAge. As you saw in our broadcaster, there is a link to donate personally. I believe most of us on this screen are members. I know I've been a member for many, many years. One of the problems that InfoAge has had in the past, and hopefully not in the future, is you join InfoAge, but they don't re-up you. You don't get a postcard or a letter, and you have to do it yourself in January. So hopefully that will change. And I've talked to Colonel Mike about it, and he realizes that it's a problem. It's even more of a problem right now since his staff is non-existent. So if we can help them out as much as we can, please do, because really without InfoAge, the RTM pretty much wouldn't exist. So just want to mention that as a problem. Is there any other old business anybody wants to bring up?
Rich, I just want to mention that I'm one of those delinquent with my dues. I usually pay in March in person. Can I do this with PayPal online?
Yes, you can, Bob. We prefer a check only because PayPal, takes their money, their cut. But it's better than you not paying at all.
So who if I send a check, who do I mail it to?
You got to Marcia. It's the address is in our broadcaster.
Okay, we'll do that. Thanks.
Marcia Simpkin, okay?
Sorry about that. Yeah, we'll do that. Thanks.
Thank you for admitting that in front of all these people, Bob.
Yeah, I'm going to admit that also. So I'm going to get my payment out to you too, as
Oh
well.
my goodness, it's a confession night here.
It
Okay.
is session night, you know. This virus thing just threw me off.
I
So-
understand. Yeah, I understand. Anybody else? Okay. All right. Okay. Okay, on to new business. Needless to say, our spring repair clinic, May 23rd, has been canceled for all the obvious reasons. All right. This is pretty neat. Last night, I was invited to join the New England Vintage Electronics Club, NEVIC, for a presentation by Tom Pereira of the Enigma machine fame. I think so many people know Tom. His talk was about Phil Weingarten, the well-known fake master of vintage wireless equipment. Very informative. All right. Tom cautioned everyone to take a good look at any expensive keys they may have bought over the years as to whether they were genuine or not. After I got off, and of course, obviously, I saw Joe Devonshire up there. I was thinking, well, Tom put this on as a Zoom in a virtual format, and he and I have to talk and share some pictures together about something that I'm going to ask him to, how about give us a presentation on our meeting. And so I'll see what he has to say. I think he seems like a very personable guy, and I'm hoping that he would be able to do it, because I tell you, it was only about 35 minutes, but it was chock full of information that I think a lot of our younger members don't know about Phil Weingarten. I believe he passed away in 1998, and when anybody ever spoke his name, it was always with a chuckle, and people would say, "Oh yeah, I know somebody was taken. Oh yeah, I know, yeah, I know." But I tell you, when he gives this presentation, it's really amazing what a talented guy he was, or a talented con artist he was, and he made no bones about it either. And some of the monies that crossed hands, believe me, it could have been larceny on his part. But like I said, I'll talk to Tom Pereira and see if I can get a nice presentation by him for us in the very near future. Okay.
Hey, Rich,
Yeah.
I have a Phil Weingarten original.
Well, you know, I don't want to give everything away, but Tom was saying that some of the originals, meaning the Phil Weingarten original, is actually bringing big money now.
Well, I don't know if this is good. I don't know if this is going to bring big money, but it's a cardboard box that says Phil Weingarten on it, and inside are a whole bunch of these really thin tubes that they use to insulate the wires going down to the tube base. You know, when they made the tube, and they're made out of glass. I've got about 10 or 15 of them. So you think it's worth something?
Well, that was probably part of his props that he was using to make his coherers. You know, the original Marconi coherers.
Nah, I think it was for the original tubes that he was making.
Yeah, that's it. The original tubes he was making. All right, but this is, like I said, it was a great presentation. I really want to get a hold of him. And it was yesterday, so it was last night. So I only thought about it today. Also, something interesting about NEVIC, they're having a virtual auction on Zoom tomorrow. Now, I didn't get all the details. Obviously, this is all new for them also. And I will report back to you on the communicator as to how they did it, what happens, what was the, what if it was anything that could be done for us in the near future. Hopefully, we wouldn't have to do that, but I'll let you know. I'm going to go to Joe Devonshire. Joe Devonshire. Do you know Joe Devonshire?
Unmute, Joe.
Joe Daventry. Hi, Joe. Oh, Joe, yeah.
All right, now I'm live. So,
all right, great. Listen, what do you know about the auction tomorrow?
All right, the way we've worked this out is those that want to be involved with it obviously have to be a member of the NEVIC Club. You sign up for a 5-minute slot. You can show pictures of whatever it is you have for sale, pictures of whatever you want. You can sit, you have 5 minutes to speak your mind on anything you want as well. So the we already have about 25 signed up for it, so we estimate that should be a little over 2 hours, 2.5 hours to get everything done. We're going to run it from 9 to 12. We send the invitations out about 15, 20 minutes before the event starts. What I've been doing most of this past day is practicing getting what I'm going to put up there. I'm working with a, somebody's unmuted. Paul, can you mute yourself?
I'm sorry.
What we're going, okay, thank you. What we're going to, let's see, we're going to video this thing. We're going to start at 9, run to 12, as I said. The event, yeah, we're going to see how it goes. The idea is take all your exchanges offline, email back and forth, telephone numbers. You can use the chat function at the bottom to put up whatever you want. Now, I'm going to be running a video. It's going to run roughly 5 minutes of an estate that I'm working with. And I've been working most of the day trying to make sure that I can get it on. Zoom doesn't allow you to store video on their site or the group's IO site as well. So I have it on my Google Drive. I've worked out a way to get it from the Google Drive onto Zoom. And it works real well. You can do a full screen if you care to. You know, it seems like it's going to be a great platform to run the event. And, you know, stay tuned. We'll see how, what kind of report we can give you next month. In fact, if I can get on next week on one of Al's meetings, I'll give a post, report on the whole thing. So, wish us well, and if it works out well, we can do it with the New Jersey group too. And the other thing I like to point out too is, since we're not doing this in person, you have to work out how you're going to do your exchange. Are you going to ship things? Are you going to meet at a mutually agreeable spot? How are you going to exchange funds, that sort of thing. So all these things are coming together. We put this together in about 2.5 weeks. So this is going to be a very interesting event tomorrow. So thanks for letting me speak about this, Rich. Back to you.
All right, Joe. Thank you very much. I figured you'd be the answer man for this. Thank you very much. Okay, Ham Shack Corner. We will be participating in the ARRL Field Day, June 26th and the 28th. We will be doing it, all right, on the grounds of InfoAge, which, from what I understand from Colonel Mike, they will be opening that same weekend. But of course, it will be limited. Our event will be limited, and it'll be socially distancing, and unfortunately, there won't be any visitors allowed. But we're still going to do it, okay? So our hams are going to be making contacts in an emergent situation, which the pandemic is in a way, and that hopefully we'll be doing it on some tube equipment. I think some of the guys will be bringing in some of their transmitters and some of their, I think Bob Johansson there said something about it too. So hopefully we're looking forward to that. Okay, and we will also be having our annual Ham Fest, the 25th of July. Social distancing, no problem, on the grounds of InfoAge. So we look forward to that. It will happen. I promise you, it will happen. And of course, it will not rain. As we all know, it has never rained in the 18, 19 years we've been having that.
There's a question.
Question.
Paul?
Go ahead, Paul. Paul.
Yes, I was just going to let Joe know that that extensive video that you did of all your wares,
I had no idea anybody could cram that many possible sets, all neatly numbered and videoed, into a potential slot for a Zoom Fest. At the best, I thought of maybe somebody holding up 1 or 2 radios at the very most. But Joe is prolific. He's the Cecil B. DeMille, I think, of the Zoom Fest as far as his ability to take a video. And he's got them numbered. I mean, it's a very professional job. One of the things that struck me, I'm not in this group as far as being technically adept, but some of the presentations that I've seen on Zoom that people have put together, this merchandise list that Joe has put together, you get to see some very interesting techniques as far as how to present, whether it's a topic or in Joe's case, radios for sale. So I saw very nice sets too. The folks you're working with up there should be happy, Joe. So, you know, it's a very professional presentation. In some cases, you know, you're not sure what you're going to get with people who are new to a medium, but people have really taken this and run with it. So I think the tinkerer, you know, being the antique radio enthusiast, has really got an edge on the general public as far as putting together, whether it's a presentation or a concept or a PowerPoint display, then sharing the screen. We've seen some great things. So, you know, Rich, if you're ever looking for somebody, I know a few of the folks up in Nevick who tend to be a little bit more on the, you know, no pun intended, hammy side. So, you know, maybe not, you know, professionally, but they'd be glad to do a presentation for you if you'd like to have a Thursday night movie, so to speak.
Paul, I appreciate that input. Now, giving the kudos to Joe Devonshire here, you do understand we lost him, but we didn't lose him. I mean, he ran away to Maine, but I believe he spends more time now incommunicado with us now that he's in Maine than he did when he was in New Jersey. And we can really appreciate that. We do love him. Now, speaking of you, Paul, you tell us about you. What's going on with RCA Tube Talk?
Well, what's going on? Well, you know, long story short, I mean, there was several months ago, I did visit a station down in Rhode Island that happens to stream in cell brokered time, very similar to a WRCA experience. It's 1380 AM out of lovely Woonsocket, Rhode Island. And the thing that struck me when I went in there, I knew it might be a good meeting, is they had about half a dozen vintage Zeniths, Motorola's, Admirals, and RCA sets. And we came close to making an agreement to perhaps putting the program back. There were some real logistical problems in doing so. Personnel-wise, it was great. But unfortunately, WRCA, which was a Beasley station up here, 1330, was part of this whole realignment with iHeart and Beasley. And long story short, it's now a Bloomberg affiliate. The fellow who was my producer and / mentor has been fired. So, you know, as radio has continued to get homogenized and conglomerated, slots and spots for people who have independent programming get harder and harder to come by. So I would just say, if you have somebody who's a small power, low power station who does something interesting in your area, support them, listen to them, email them, and hope they don't get gobbled up. Usually if you're under 5,000 watts or less, those properties are less attractive to these behemoths that go around sucking up all the individual radio stations and putting on all the same programming, all the syndicated shows. So I've been out of the radio program for a while, but I've looked at perhaps bringing it back as a Zoom formatted program where maybe I have invitees and I do an interview with somebody, perhaps. So I've basically been pretty much consumed with my work life and focusing not even so much on collecting anymore, but my latest radio exploit was earlier this week when I saw the FedEx man throw a box marked Fragile about 5 feet onto my brick steps that may have been the death blow to a very lovely Normandy that I had purchased from a fellow down in Delaware. It was extremely well packed. Well, basically I got a box of broken glass, wooden sticks, and a couple of tubes. So, you know, yes, I'm collecting, I'm active in the club, and I've been Zooming with the club. I work at the shows. So I've been sort of devoting my energies in that area, but not so much in the public eye anymore. So the website's still up if anybody wants to listen to old shows and hear people like Dave Sika, or Rich Lee, these pentultimate celebrities in the radio hobby, do an interview. You're more than welcome. It's TubeTalkClassicRadioshow.org. But thank you for asking.
I just had to ask, Paul. Just had to ask.
That's all right. No problem. I'd love to bring it back. I think I might be getting to a point time-wise as I get a little older here too, and hopefully I would like to have thought as I've aged, my work life would be less demanding. It's turned out to be more demanding, which is depressing in its own respect. But given a little time, it doesn't take much to do that. So I'd be happy to do it again. And it was fun, and it was a great way to meet people and talk to folks I'll never meet in person. But, you get these very passionate, knowledgeable people who love to share. They're perfect interviews, whether it's Zoom or if you write an article about them, or if you do it on the radio, it's even better for us. So in any event, I'm glad to be here, and hopefully I'll be able to get into the Zoom Fest tomorrow. One of the reasons we were so keen on having some type of a radio exchange is, the New England Vintage Electronics Club has never canceled a meeting. So we're very, very keen on keeping that string going. So hopefully tomorrow we'll have some success. From some of the things I've seen people who have to offer, we've created these little subfolders, and we have a little talk group, and folks could post. You could get a preview similar to an auction. You could take a look at what different people have to offer. So you may know that, well, I'm waiting for John Smith to come up because I really want that Stuart Warner that he had. So you can kind of plan your attack and take advantage of, the small amount of time, because it's very compressed. But it'll be interesting to see how it'll go. It's kind of like a flash auction or a flash sale. So should be fun. Thanks for letting me blab.
Okay, Paul. Happy to have you. All right, that's all I got to report. My official business meeting here. Do you guys want to stretch your legs? Do you want to have a little intermission, or do you just want to move on?
Keep going.
Keep
I don't
it
know,
going?
but if you have an intermission, you got to put that cool. You got to put that cool intermission thing they use at the drive-ins.
Okay, all right, let's just go on. All right, so we'll have an extremely brief intermission then, all right? Very brief.
Hey, Neville?
Come on. There we go. Okay. Yes, sir.
I just purchased my first digitized Chinese-made generator today.
Okay. Is it the Harbor Freight one?
No, I wouldn't spend that kind of money at Harbor Freight unless I was getting a flashlight.
I thought it was Harbor Fright.
Or Horrible Fraud.
A single-use tool company.
When you buy a generator, you really want it to work when you need it. It's not something that you can, well, maybe if it doesn't work, I'll fix it. No, when you want it. So I'm not sure Harbor Freight is a good supplier for that.
The advice is never buy anything from Harbor Freight that your life depends on. Like an automobile lift would be a really bad idea.
You still using transformers to hold your energy up, Dave?
Yeah, it works pretty good.
Bob, they make awesome wheel chocks. I figured that one out.
All right, guys, let's move on with the program. We're going to do hints and kinks and/or show and tell. Okay. Now, we have no idea. We've got over 50 participants this evening on Zoom. I have no idea how many guys are going to be doing the show and tell. I have no idea how we're going to raise a hand and put a number to you. So what I'm going to do is have everybody just ready, okay? And I'm going to go from screen to screen, and you're going to raise your hand and tell me you've got something to show and tell. All right.
Can I make one comment, Richard?
All right. Go ahead, Dave.
The screens tend to jump around, so you may not want to use that as your reference. You may want to quickly handwrite a list or let people raise their hands.
Under the Reactions tab, you can click a thing which will show a hand in your picture. It looks like that.
That's true.
Yeah, that would be best, I think.
Okay, can everybody find that? It's a thumbs up, thumbs down. At least I have an idea. All right, I'm going to, here we go. All right, I see Darren. You got a thumbs up, Darren. Go ahead. You got 5 minutes, Darren.
I was just trying to figure that one. I was just trying to figure that one out. Sorry about that. But okay, can you hear me?
Go ahead.
Okay. So my show and tell item is hanging in front of me. That's part of it. That's the is anybody out there knows what that is? I know Bill Zukowski.
It's a Shure ribbon microphone.
Yeah, it's a Shure 300. It's the predecessor to the 330, which was Johnny Carson's microphone.
Yeah, I got the 333.
But this, I got something to go with it though, and I wanted to light it up, but the camera doesn't like it. This is an original illuminated Shure dealer sign. Got the old Shure logo on it, probably from around, I guess, late 60s, early 70s. Unfortunately, it hung in a window, so it's a little bit faded. I got to get a little bit of bravery going and some one-shot sign paint and reblack it. But I thought it played in well with the microphone. But I've had that sign about 25 years. It used to hang in my room when I was a lot younger, but came from an audio dealer that used to be in Staten Island when I was a kid.
All right, Darren, thank you. Anybody else on this screen? I'm looking. Anybody else?
I can't find the tab.
All right. Owen, is that you?
No, it's Bob.
That's me.
Owen.
That's me. All right, I just want to show this real quick. Radio here that I made a case out of. I hooked it in, made out of plexiglass sides, and just so that it can house it. Radio working nicely, and that's what I have here. It's radio came in originally a busted up cabinet, but I needed knobs for another radio that has this configuration, so I took that and decided to just make a case for this. And the other thing is this one that I was working on, not working yet, but put it together out of this book here.
And that's a dish pan chassis?
Yeah, dish pan, cake pan chassis. Okay. Yeah, so it's not working yet, but it will hopefully soon. That's my show and tell.
All right, thank you, Owen. Larry, you had your hand up. Unmute, Larry.
I did have my hand up. And was my thumb showing? Because it doesn't show on my screen.
It was, yeah.
There's a difference between raising your hand and giving the thumbs up. The thumbs up just goes up for like 5 seconds and then it disappears. Raising your hand is a different button, and that stays up until you or the host brings it down.
Thank you. What I have today is I have a pair of these. You'll recognize the name, Blonder Tongue.
Oh, yeah.
This is a Class A amp.
Former members of the New Jersey Antique Radio Club.
Yes, in memoriam. This uses push-pull 6V6s, and if you notice, instead of bass and treble, it has 4 tone controls, almost like a graphic equalizer, 4 4 controls. And amazingly, in the construction, this same chassis could have been a radio, the speaker in the back.
Huh.
And they did a number of items. They had speakers, they had AM tuners, they had FM tuners, they had tuners with amps. But these are pretty scarce. Took 10 years to pair this up. I found one on eBay and finally found one at a flea market to match it. It's a little more scuffed than this one, but I'm pretty proud of these, and they will get restored. And if I ever get to do the in-person demo of enjoying your record playing back better, I probably will have these done by then. Is there any word on InfoAge?
We have you scheduled for 2026, Larry.
That's very good. I might be dead by then, but there probably would have been an auction that you've missed by then.
I'm sorry to be macabre, but believe me, I haven't forgotten about you. We have not forgotten about you.
I know. It really needs to be a live demo, though. It's not something I can do.
I know, and that's exactly why. Yeah.
Yeah, I can do the technical stuff on a Zoom meeting, but it's not going to take the impact of where everyone can hear what a difference the right phono EQ can make and how easy it is to enjoy your record playing better. That's it for my show and tell. Do we have a word when InfoAge will ever be coming back in the summer? Is there any?
The weekend of the 29th, supposedly. All right, that's fingers crossed, of June 29th, the weekend. Our same field day, our field day weekend.
Okay, in June, end of June.
Yes, sir.
And do you plan on having meetings there at that time, or are we going to keep doing this?
Brother, we don't have any plans. We're the seat of our pants, my friend. We're going to take it as it comes.
Well, yeah, these are definitely.
We don't go there on Friday nights in the summertime.
Anyway, yeah.
Why? Because they turn the air off?
No, it's just too much traffic. But then we have no traffic right now. But that's a whole nother thing.
Yeah.
Rich, that's not true. I was down there today, past it, and there's lots of traffic today. Sorry.
What kind of traffic, Harry?
Car traffic, not to InfoAge, but down Parkway, down Route 18, the whole mess. It was a real mess.
Well, that's why we go to Princeton. Thanks to
Professor Mike. That was today. Today of all days.
Well, it happened to be 85 degrees today, Harry.
Yeah, I know. Anyway, that's a fact.
All right, you got your hand up, Harry. You have a show and tell?
I don't have my real. I have. That's my real hand. So no, I don't. I just got back.
Okay. John Holmbo, you have your hand up.
I got a little something for show and tell, just a little.
Don't get personal now.
A Slaby wireless system coherer.
Here, okay.
And it took me a long time to find out that it was for the Slaby wireless system, but I ultimately found it with the Deutsches Reich Patente number that's on it. And I did a little research, and that's what it is. $18.99, if I can believe it.
Are you sure it's not a Phil Weingarten reproduction?
No, it's not. This is an original.
That's what he always said, yeah.
You look at it sometime, Rich. But it is in working order. I tested it, actually. I found I could get the resistance to drop quite low if I hooked it up to an ohm meter, and then I exposed it to the spark from a Whedon coil. That did it at a distance. So that's pretty much it.
All right, John, thank you. Was there a question there?
Yeah, John, do you have a decoherer for it?
I don't have a decoherer for it, but I probably got a bell that I can steal the ringer off and do that. Because all I did, I hooked it up to about a 1-foot wire antenna, and about 5 feet away, I used a Whedon coil. I operated the gas coil that I have at work for checking strobe lamps. And that was enough to make a spark discharge to get it to cohere.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. This is one of those things that I found, believe it or not.
Do you know what the metal is inside?
I don't know exactly, but they generally were nickel and silver and iron mixture. So I don't know about this one. I have to, that much information I did not get from the article that I found about it. But the patent number is directly from the Slaby wireless system. So that's the smoking gun.
Okay, John, thank you. All right, another hand up. Do I see anybody?
We got two hands up. Maddox?
Fred, go ahead, Fred.
Okay, this is a what they call a re-equalizer. I got it from Chicago, and what it does, it gets rid of the RIAA curve, so you can listen to 78s in their original incarnation. It's a mono device, and you can cancel out noise with it, and also it'll play vertical and lateral records. And it's it's quite a piece of equipment. I haven't hooked it up yet, but having a bunch of 78s that I'm interested in, it give me a chance to hear them in their real habitat, so to speak.
How old is that device, Fred?
It's actually new. I just got it. There's a guy, Esoteric Sound in Chicago, makes it. And it's like a one-of-a-kind thing. I talked to the guy, he's the engineer, and it has a way of actually playing vertical records without having to rewire your cartridge or turntable.
Okay, Fred, thank you.
All right, Rich, you got three hands raised electronically here. Maddox is the first one.
Okay, Bob Maddox, you're up.
Sir, I'm here. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I have here, maybe you might recognize it. It's a Smith's Astral clock made in England. This clock has to be circa about 1936, 38, I believe. The antiquer, I got it from about 50 years ago, trying to BS me a little bit. Since we're so close to Lakehurst, he said he believes it came from the Hindenburg, which is a possibility, but I doubt it. At any rate, well, I know that the bridge on the Hindenburg was not completely destroyed. We had one of our firemen here in Marlborough in 1937 that was called out to the fire at the Hindenburg. They thought we had a chemical truck. It was a water truck, a 40-gallon tank in the back of water, and they thought it was chemical. Get that fireman, that Marlborough truck down here, but couldn't do much. But he was inside the flight deck. At any rate, this is a Smith's Astral clock, and the two red bands on here is when the radio operators are supposed to monitor the emergency frequency at the time. And they're little 4-minute strobes all around the clock. You got it every 5 minutes. 4 minutes is a little red mark on here. And I believe that is when the people that were in distress would probably just hold the key down so that they could get a bearing on a signal. Now, there might be somebody, probably a number of people out there are more familiar with this clock than I am. But that's what I got. I did have a nice dissertation on it some years ago that I have safely stashed away, and it's so safe that it's going to look like brand new paper if and when I find it. But it's a beautiful clock, brass, and it winds up. I wind it once a week, and it keeps pretty good time, but I'm always setting, advancing, or retarding the spark, so to speak, on it because it runs fast, runs slow. Who cares, but it works. And it's a neat one.
Who is the manufacturer on that?
Smith's Astral, England.
They
Okay,
were
Bob, thank you.
4-second long dashes for distress call, and they had special receivers too, called auto alarm receivers, so that they would be able to tell if there was just on 500 kilohertz distress frequency.
All right, thank you, Bob. Jules, you're up next.
Okay, I'm going to try to do a share. Let's see if it works. Okay, so what you're looking at there is an equipment frame, which was the world's first digital fiber optic television system. This was built as a Western Electric standard product, designed 35 years ago, and was designed for the 1984 Olympics. And I want to tell you a little bit about what this is and how it got to be that way. In 1980, I went out to California and found out that the Olympics that were going to be done in the Los Angeles area were going to be done at places all over the city. ABC Television was the host company to do the television, and they were going to provide the feeds for all the television networks in the world. What they needed to do was to bring 135 simultaneous camera feeds into a studio in Hollywood on Gower Street, and then assemble all the programming for the world. So what I proposed to Pacific in 1980 was that since they were in the process of building a large optical fiber network, that they could put digital television on the optical fiber and use that and then turn it over to regular telephone service when they were done. It would be a great cost savings. The problem was there was no such thing as a digital coder. So I proposed to actually develop this. And so the reason I can talk about this is that I conceived this project, and I was actually the principal engineer and designer and carried this all the way through Western Electric until it became a commercial product. So what you see over there on the screen right now, and I guess I can use does that pointer work? Yeah. This is the interface to a 90 megabit optical fiber line. These are the power supplies up on top. These two blocks are the two audio channels, high quality 15 kilohertz channels. And all of these circuit boards down here provide the television coding. Now, of course, the optical fiber end had to match Bell System standards because it was going to go over the network. But the difficult part was designing the coder, because the television people had never used digital television before for transmission. And especially since we had to do some compression, they were very leery about whether this could be made to work at all. So let me explain a little why it takes 4 years to go from conception to a product when you try to do something like this. And you have to remember that this was designed for Western Electric. And in that company, quality was more important than price. Everything had to work and it had to stay working. Or to put it another way, if this system failed in service during the Olympics, I had the chance of every person on the planet getting mad at me at once. So, and also they weren't going to delay the Olympics if the project was late. So what we did, part of the design cycle, was to first do computer simulations of how we were going to do the compression coding. Then we built a laboratory model and had ABC television engineers come in and check it out. And one of the things that we had to be able to do was to be able to replicate all of the standard analog tests, because we didn't want to introduce any new technology that was going to screw things up at the last minute. So in fact, we actually designed algorithms so all of the old-fashioned tests could be put through this system. Then after we did that, we built a full prototype model. We tested the prototype model. From the prototype, we made engineering drawings. It went to Western Electric. We built a half a dozen units. We went into field trial. We connected them up between New York and Washington, did all kinds of testing. And by the time the Olympics came, everything worked perfectly. But I want to show you a little bit about what's inside, just to give you a feel of what's going on here. Let's see if I can do that. Okay, so what you're looking at is one of the circuit boards. And this circuit board happens to be in the D to A part of the system. The frame that I showed was actually a receiver. The transmitter looked exactly the same. There was a pair. And what you're looking at here is the anti-aliasing filter that we needed for television. And this was one of the most difficult parts to design, because what we were carrying was NTSC television with the color subcarriers at the full 4.2 megahertz bandwidth. So this filter had to have a very sharp cutoff to prevent any kind of aliasing in the digital processing. And Interestingly enough, this was designed by one of my people, a woman, female engineer, old timer, who knew how to design these very complicated LC passive filters. And this is really a fabulous filter because not only does it have a very sharp cutoff, but since we were carrying color television, it had to be an absolutely phased linear filter with no ringing at the sharp, for sharp transitions. So we did all of that. We put this whole system together. It worked. Everybody in the world who saw the Olympics in '84 saw that the system worked. 4 years later, I understand that the design was copied and was used in Korea for the '88 Olympics. And well, apparently somebody thought this was okay because of this, they made me a fellow of the IEEE. So that's my show and tell for today.
Well, congratulations with that.
Beautiful.
Thank you,
Very,
Jules. Thank you.
very impressive.
Jules, you have that in your basement now?
No, I don't have the entire equipment frame, but I do have most of the circuit boards. The thing cost like $100,000, and they weren't about to let me walk off with it. But it's really quite a challenge to not just design something, but to make it pass all the temperature tests and stuff like that, and then getting it into a production line at Western Electric, which is a whole world unto itself. In fact, at some point, I actually had to move my family up to North Andover, Massachusetts, so I could sit on the production line to make sure that a lot of these parts came out. Obviously, I can talk about this for many hours, but you're not going to be
But
interested.
to answer the question, yes, it's in the basement.
Oh, it is in the basement. I guess it is.
Jules, how many were made?
Pardon?
How many were made?
Well, we set up 135 channels. The production run was probably on the order of 200 or 300 units. Now, when you realize this is 35 years ago, you have all of this in your cell phone today. It's literally 1 million times smaller.
55 years ago.
55? Okay.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Jules.
Thank you.
Erwin, your hand's up.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Okay. What I'm going to show you is a magazine, Radio News Magazine from 1923. Hopefully you could see that. And if you take a look at this right here, this is the original artwork of that magazine. It's oil on canvas. And I also have another one, again, from 1923, Radio News. And this is a nice little interesting picture. It's a mother looking like she's pulling on her son's back because he's down in his ham shack and it's 1:30 in the morning. And here's the original artwork to that. So that's pretty unusual. I don't think anyone else has that. And the way I got it was one of my employees said he found it in the garbage. And on the back of it, it said Radio News. And I did some research and I was able to get these magazines and I had it all framed and appraised. And I'm really proud of these two pieces.
That's wonderful. All right, thanks for sharing it with us.
My pleasure.
Matt Reynolds, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I got two things. Let me share my screen real quick. It shouldn't take too long here. Just one moment. Just one moment here. Too many windows open here. Okay, I want to show you project I worked on last year. This was something I picked up from the estate of Joe Crow, and this is one of those 8-track Weltron-y ball-looking machines, the 70s era thing. And you can see that this particular one was pretty gross. Let me open a better slideshow here. Yeah, here we go. So you can see this is how I got it. This is in his basement, so it's filthy.
Yeah, Matt, you have to share a different screen when you do that. We're
Oh,
still,
okay, yeah, all right, hold on.
yeah, so
Yeah.
stop share and then reshare.
Yep, I gotcha. Photos, here we go. So you can see this thing is pretty gross. This is how I got it. It was dirty and yellowed, and I was trying to clean it up. As you can see the handle here, I was doing what I thought would work, which was just using various cleaners, like stuff that you would have in your kitchens, under your kitchen sink or whatever. And you can see it got a little bit cleaner, but this was after hours of scrubbing and everything, and I got really irritated with it. So I was looking at other alternatives. And what I was told you can use is 40-vol developer hair peroxide gel. So you would get this stuff at like a beauty supply store, right? And this stuff is very bad for your fingers. You have to wear gloves. It's what they use to bleach people's hair. And I was just showing the process of what I did last year. So I tore this whole thing apart, and you can see this is already more of an ivory color. But as I continued, this is where it was before I really started cleaning. Another view. And then you can see the process here. So I was slathering this cream stuff on, and I was covering it in plastic. It has to be outside to react to UV. And you just put like saran wrap over top of the plastic just to help it from evaporating so quickly. So it takes more time. And I don't have a picture of the stuff. I can put a link in the chat on what I did. I got it from Amazon, but you can see how drastically different the effect is. And you can just, it just looks brand new, right? So that's all the pieces of it right here. And that's what it looks like right there, done. And behind me, I will get it. It's right here. And so you just here. So we got the it's a Winford Hall brand here. And what's interesting about this, it's hard to see. And knowing Joe Crow, what's interesting about it is not the normal Weltron, but if you look at all the bands, there's a shortwave band, a ham band, and it does work. And I got everything working, 8-track and everything. And let me turn it on for you. It runs on 8D batteries, but if you plug in the cable, it shorts out the battery terminals, so it won't use them. That's the noise you hear me dropping when I turned around. But it does work, and I just thought that would be an interesting show and tell / hint and kink combination. And it was sort of a thing I got from Joe.
Say, Matt, can you put a link on the communicator for that product so we all know what it is?
Yeah, no problem.
Okay. All right. Thanks for sharing it.
Yep.
Yeah, it's cool.
Phil Vortzis, your hand was up, yes?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I picked out a couple of radios I've got in my collection. This is a GE, and it's really quite a decorative set. You can see, actually I have it on a Lazy Susan, so I shouldn't have to do that. And this is back at the beginning of the series string sets, where they didn't quite have the voltages figured out yet, so you had to use a big resistor, or what do they call that type of tube? I forget now. But you can see the big resistor that I put in there as a replacement to get it to work. Because I think most of the tubes are like 6 volts, or maybe there's one 25-volt tube in there. Anyway, that's a GE. Now, during the week, on another Zoom meeting, we were talking about RCA radio that was made in Germany, I guess. And this is the one I have. And somebody was saying during that meeting that most of the transformers are blown out on these, but mine works fine. And the radio really sounds terrific. And part of the reason it sounds so good is they put 4 speakers in this thing. And I should be able to pop this right out. Yeah. You can see two main speakers, and then on the sides there's 2 tweeters. So, and here's, I guess, the transformer that we were talking about, but luckily mine works fine. And so that's the RCA German. Oh, the only thing that doesn't work is the eye tube. So I've got to work on that. And that's it. Yeah.
What eye tube does it use?
I don't know if I can see it from here. Let's see. It's all covered up, so I can't tell. I don't have the schematic handy right now.
6U5.
It's
Yeah.
probably an EM34 or EM35.
The Europeans had the reason I asked, the Europeans had so many oddballs. They generally never used a 6U or 6E5, but if you need it, Phil, I probably have one. I have a lot of weird European eye tubes.
If it's an octal base, it's probably an EM34 or EM35, like Darren said.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like it's octal.
That's a double range eye tube with a sharp cutoff and a remote cutoff, so you get different eye behavior on weak and strong signals.
Ah. Well, I can tell you this is one great sounding radio. So any other questions? Okay, that's it.
All right, thank you, Phil. Lou Lombardi, did you have your hand up?
No, actually, I didn't.
Oh, too bad. All right. Marv, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, I've got 2 things. I'm going to hold them in front of the camera. Hope it works. Sometimes you have to please the XYL, because some of the radios like I have, and most of them are battery sets, and you really can't decorate with them. You can't, they don't have any visual appeal. And you have to go into the deco stuff to have that. So one thing that I've been trying to collect, I'm sure you've seen them around. I'll hold it up. I don't know, can you see that? Let's see, where is it? Oh, there it is. Okay. They're, all right, let me hold it back. These are like biscuit boxes, and they're made in the form of radios. And there's quite a few out there, okay? And biscuit boxes, and this one's a lunch box, okay? And they come in lots of colors and lots of designs, and they're pretty nice. I mean, if you just want to decorate with something that sort of kind of looks like a radio, and it's also collectible, these are kind of nice to use. I'll show you another one. Here's another one. This has got it's got push buttons on it. They're really not push buttons. They're just indented into the thing. And some of them are kind of complete, because if you look on the back of this guy, it actually has a faux antenna, and also on this right here, a place for a power cord. And sometimes they really get kind of nice. They call this a retro radio. And this one comes with a whole bunch of colors. Same thing on the back. It's got like a faux antenna and something called a battery box. Okay, so to make it look like sort of like it was a radio. And same radio in a slightly different color in the white. And it's kind of nice because it's got like sort of mahogany look on the side. So you can find these on eBay. They sell them in the United States with actually biscuits in them. Most of them are made in England though. And you find the empty boxes on sale on eBay from England. So the price is a little more heftier than had you bought it from a US vendor. But there's a whole bunch of them out there. And when you set them all up, they look kind of nice. My second thing is I got these about 10 years ago from Bruce Major. And it was a whole book of photographs of both proposed and actually, patented designs for RCA radios, okay? And a lot of them, they never put out, but they're really interesting designs. So I figured I'd just show you a couple of them. And there isn't much to information on the back of them, although some of them actually have the date that they were approved by RCA and the actual date that they were patented. And most of the dates are around 1933. So if you recognize any of them, they sort of look like things that actually we collect, but I don't know if they're exactly them. And this may be a problem because they're in a, oh here, that's not too bad. Here's one that sort of looks like one, but it doesn't have any information on the back. It's a kind of nice looking radio, but there's no, I don't think they even published it, although it says proposed in the back. And it's beyond me why some designs were never put in production. That's one of them. Here's another interesting one that sort of looks like one that that you may have seen. I don't know if it's ever been put in production, but it has some design features of the ones we've seen. I'll just skip a couple of them, but here's one that sort of is like very deco looking. And I don't know if it's, I've never seen one, so I assume it was never put in production. And it's a 5-tube table radio, and it was approved on 10/33, and it was the patent was secured on 12/33. But like I said, I don't think I've ever seen one, so I don't think they ever actually put it in production. But I've got a whole book full of them. There must be about 30 or 40 of them. And some of the designs are really, really neat. So it sort of gives you an idea of what RCA was thinking about at the time, what they threw away, although I couldn't understand why they got rid of some of those really pretty ones, and what they actually kept. So that's about it.
All right, thanks for sharing, Marv. John Tominski, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I did, but it keeps going down. My show and tell is actually the microphone I'm using. So this is a very old Shure crystal mic. I think it's probably from the 30s. It is a model 70H, and it has a little volume control. I don't know if you can see it. And on-off switch. It's actually, a very nice crystal microphone. I had to, change the connector on it. That was my project. I was hoping to show this off earlier in the week, but the power went out when I was in the middle of soldering it. So
Is that a novelty, John, or that was an actual a ham radio operators?
no, it's not. It's not a novelty. It's a Shure crystal mic. It's a 70H, and then the box on the bottom of it that has the knob and the on-off switch is a Shure V12A, and yeah, the stand is also a Shure stand.
I never saw one of them before, John. The D104s are plenty around, but never seen any of them.
Well, I've got my D104 right next to me here, you know, so I could switch up if I want to.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I've never seen another one of these microphones either. It even has the original, I don't know if you can see it there, braided cloth cord on it. It's in really nice condition. So.
That's cool. I guess that's around the 1930s.
Yeah, it's got to be fairly early. You know, it looks like it's earlier than the Ring and Spring D104 that I have.
That's cool.
That's pretty much it here.
All right, thank you, John. Is there anybody else I've missed? Oh,
This is
Rick
Neville.
Scoba.
Neville, we don't hear you.
Oh, I thought I heard you say Rich and another name that I missed.
Rick Scoba.
On mute.
Rick Scoba, unmute.
His mic is on.
He's got a problem, he's talking, but the mic ain't picking him up, so there must be something wrong. Rich, your mic isn't working.
Is my mic working?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I'm available.
Rick, we're sorry, we can't get you. All right, Joe. Go ahead, Joe.
Oh, okay. So, part of the fun to me is when, like John was showing off this nice Shure mic. Now, it's great to see this item or any of the other items that the guys are demonstrating. But part of the interest, at least to me, not to give away any secrets or anything like that, but how, for example, did John Tominski come up finding that Shure mic? And that applies to anyone else who has an interesting item. And it would be fun for me anyway to know how did you come across it? How did you find it? That's my question.
John, you want to take that?
All right, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. This one, along with several other of the earlier microphones that I have, anything that seems like it's from the 20s or 30s, came to me when my friend, you know, and our also member Joe passed away, Joe Crow. I have, you know, a few of his, you know, microphones that were in his collection. Some of them, you know, he used with his ham transmitters. Some of them, like this one, I don't think they were ever screwed around with. So, I mean, I tested this initially when I got it a while back, and I haven't really done anything with it that much before this week, and it's probably the first time this thing has seen much use in about, you know, 70 years.
Is that a Shure Model 70, John?
It's a 70H.
1935 from what catalog I'm looking at here shows.
Yeah, that would seem about right. So, but yeah, there wasn't any, big hunt over this one. Some of my other ribbon mics, which you may see here in the coming weeks, there are much more interesting stories behind those.
Okay, John, thank you. Thank you.
On a totally separate question, but have you ever measured the frequency response of that thing? It sounds very limited.
My guess is about 3,000 to 3,100 hertz.
Yeah, it's a crystal microphone. It's very tinny. It's an early crystal mic. It's probably lost some of its output over the years. But this is what they sound like. Any of the crystal microphones I have, just about every one of them sounds like shit.
Very intelligible, though.
Yeah, it is. It might be interesting to measure this response, but anyway, so that's it.
I think it's the altitude of where he's at. That's why the high-pitched voice.
It's a communications mic. Actually, if you're in a distance mixed in with static, it does stand out. And you don't, with sideband anyway, you don't want to put power in the low frequencies.
I got a couple of crystal mics, and they sound surprisingly good.
Oh, yeah, they can.
Of course, in the 30s, there was no sideband either.
Well, but AM communications, and if it's lightly loaded, because it's a high impedance output, the frequency response actually is quite good. The response is limited by how much loading. Yet you really can't load them.
Speaking of mics, can you hear me, Rich?
That's quite true, but those crystals usually go bad in 20, 30 years.
Oh, yes. Yeah, that happens too. But, if it was, a working mic, it is high impedance. You can't load them. Otherwise, they get very tinny.
Yes, that's very true. But I'm sure it sounded a lot better than that when it was new.
Okay, thank you. Pete Olin, did you have your hand up, Pete Olin?
Rich is finally audible.
Oh, you can hear me?
Rich Stova.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Where are you?
I'm here. Can you hear me? It's a question.
I can hear you. Now I can't see. I got to find you, but go ahead.
All right. This is a flea market find from about 15 years ago. And it's sort on a pile of junk, literally, and some broken telephone pieces. But it's a straight key in remarkably good condition when you find out its age.
Hold it up, Rick. Hold it up.
Okay. I can't see myself. I see you. I'm looking for the. How's that? Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay. So I went over to look at it, and what caught my eye is underneath the holder for the is a little plate, and everything's written in Japanese on it. I mean, I can't decipher a thing on this thing. So the internet became my friend. I started researching, and I talked to a few people in the US and a guy in Australia. They did some translation for me. And they told me this is a Type 94 Type X2 straight Japanese key made by somebody called Tokyo Musen Denkai. The thing that amazed me also is if you turn it around, there's another plate. I don't know if you can see that. It has the schematic for it. And it has a resistor and I believe a capacitor in there. And when you turn it around, it has a little hook on the side. You unhook that and you flip the box back, and within the inside is where the resistor and the capacitor is. So I said, well, that's kind of interesting, but why'd they go through all that effort? Because there are some supporting bars here that connected back into the circuit. So I looked on a couple of websites and I found a guy who had another one. His did not have the components inside the case. They were not visible, so I'm assuming they were underneath the key base. Well, I found another site over in the Netherlands, and the guy over there described it as a key used in a Japanese bomber. And the guys who translated the Japanese for me translated it into being built in they based their years on the month the emperor was born. So it's the 4th month after the emperor was born. It says April 1939. And how the heck this thing came all the way from Japan, perhaps even a Japanese bomber, ended up in a flea market in Piscataway, I can't explain. But it's actually a functional, nice little straight key. It's got a pretty heavy movement here, but it feels nice. And it's well made. It even has what the base looks like it's made of bamboo, possibly. It's very tough. It's been lacquered. It's got machine parts on it. And on the site where I found that it's used in a Japanese bomber, they actually have a picture inside a Japanese bomber with a guy working the key next to a radio, which they give the model of. And I don't know if that means anything, but it has about a 3-foot cord on, or a meter cord with a couple of banana plugs. And that's it.
All right, Rick, thank you. I'm glad we finally got a hold of your audio. Okay, I've been calling out to Pete Olin. Pete Olin, did you have your hand up?
Hey, Rich, did you hear me?
Pete.
Rich.
Who's calling?
Sal.
Sal.
Hey, Sal.
Hey, how are you? If you guys want to see the rare look of my basement and Sal's capacitor corner, so hold on. Let me switch the camera over. Hold on, don't screw this up. Okay. Let's see. No, the camera didn't switch. I finally. Okay, here we go. Hang on. It's black, I know. Because when you go down the stairs to my basement, let's see. Here's my sign. Okay. So enter at your own risk. So let's go. Okay. South capacitor corner. Here we go. Cabinets all full over there. All on this side.
Slow down the pan. Slow down the pan.
Okay. Here's resistors 2 watts. Resistors half watts. We're gonna go here. My basement is a wreck right now. 1 watt resistors. More capacitors. My stock of capacitors. That's capacitors. My stock of my resistors in boxes. The 2 watt. These are the half watts. The 2 watts are in my attic.
Hey, Sal.
Yes.
Sal, you're not turning this into a commercial, are you?
I just want you guys to see it. Here's my workbench. Hey, with the Heathkit power supply I'm recapping.
Where are your radios?
Okay, radios. Hang on.
Sal, are you using Dickey caps in that for recapping that power supply?
What caps?
I said, are you using quality Dickey caps to recap that
Yes,
power supply?
yes, I do. Yes, I am. Okay, here is 2 radios in my dining room. I make a U-turn. Here's another radio. A couple of radios. There goes back. A couple of radios there. I walk over here. Some radios. Here's another console, Zenith. Little horn speaker. This was my homemade radio that I made for one of the contests that we had. That Neville, of course, bought his stuff and I lost anyway. All right, we walk a little more. I'll slowly pan it on top of my mantle. A couple little radios there. There. Down here. A couple of radios down there. All right. It's lights are low. There's not a lot of light in this room. My Dynaco stuff, right there, ST70. We come over here. Another console. Another console. Hold on, hon. go. Over here. Another radio. And what else? What else? That's about it, I guess. Uh-oh, I think I lost you guys.
No, we're on.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, that's it. Anyway, that's what I have. I hear something interesting. Hold on. Let me show you. It's a dated February. What is it? 1900 magazine. That's in my living room. And I don't know if I can pan into the date. Wait, lift my finger there. The date's right here. What was it? February 10th, 1900. It's a magazine. So I put that there. Some more art in my living room. There. There. We can't forget about this. War of the Worlds. That's there. Majestic. There. Oh, let's see. This is behind. This is going to be kind of dark. Another one there. And my favorite one. That's in my foyer. So you see, I do have some stuff radio related around. It's not all capacitors. So anyway, that's a real look at my basement. Unless you want to see my wall of speakers.
Hey, Sal?
Yes?
Hey, Sal, this is Marv.
Hey, Marv.
What's your address? And is anyone around on the weekends?
My German Shepherd. No, I don't have a German Shepherd. So, and here is my wall of speakers that I keep talking about. I got to get rid of. There, it goes there, goes there.
Sal, where's the line cord?
Over here is 4 deep. You can't see it. I got 1, 2, 3 deep. There's another one in the front. I counted 36 pairs of speakers.
Sal, from personal experience, just so you know, I wouldn't leave them all that close together. The damn things just start multiplying. I've experienced this, and I
know.
think you got to separate them.
And there's down here's KLH over there. Dynaco up there, over here. So anyway, here's some other. I got things all over the place, but that's it. Let me switch my.
Sal, that's a hell of a sharing. That's amazing. Thanks so much.
You're welcome. Take care.
All right. Anybody else I missed? Anybody else?
How about Neville?
How about Tom Provost? He's got the bigger hand.
Wow, okay. I found that I have a choice in reactions of a thumbs up or clapping, and that's it. So raising a hand for attention, I don't have that option. Is it supposed to be there?
It's Tom.
Yeah.
If you went to participants.
Okay, participants, yeah.
And then you click on that, you'll see at the bottom it says raise hand.
Oh, okay, good. I'll have to remember that. Okay, so what I have is a very brief technical tip for restorers who either buy radios with damaged speaker cones or their speakers suffer a misadventure during restoration and they wind up with something that they're not sure is restorable. As long as most of the cone is there, you can repair it. And I'll show you one that I thought was pretty much beyond hope. Let's see if I can get it up here. It's a highly valuable radio you'll probably recognize. It's an Emerson EC301. So you can see the speaker has a tracing of black on the front. So each one of those tracings is where there was a split from damage. And what I tried as an experiment was a product that I saw recommended on an internet site. So I went over to my local Home Depot and I found this. It's called Brite liquid electrical tape. Now, maybe you guys are already familiar with this. I've never tried it, but it comes in a few more bright colors. I chose the black. And I used a very small brush and brushed it on. Dries in about 10 minutes. So in an hour, you can get maybe 3 coats on. I would suggest if the speaker cone is depressed and won't stay in place, put little slips of wax paper behind the cone and, you know, take pieces of paper towel or something tucked in there to keep it in place. And the wax paper stops it from getting glued to the whatever you're using to keep it in place. And I consider it a complete success. I put on about 3 coats, and it's not hi-fi. I think it doesn't sound any better than it's capable of sounding, but I'm not going to replace the speaker because it seemed to work quite well. So I think it was about $6 for the can of stuff. And if you clean the top of the container and the bottom of the cap when you're done with it so that it's sealed tightly, the solvent doesn't escape, you can probably fix quite a few speakers with it. So that's my tip.
Thank you for your tip, Tom. Thank you very much.
Oh, speaking of tips, I got this tip from a website. Dave Tipton has a website. He's in Australia, shows his restorations, very good, very calm. Good place to see both electronic and mechanical restoration. Dave Tipton.
All right, thanks again, Tom.
Hey, Tom, I could just put a little epilogue onto your thing there. That liquid electrical tape looks like it does a good job on the speakers. If you're on any of the internet radio sites, I guess especially Facebook, it seems that if you actually use that under the chassis as electrical tape, you are universally excoriated.
Oh, well, that's not as bad as what I thought you were going to say, which was it works good for 6 months and then it turns to powder.
I don't know.
Okay.
I've used that stuff also, I guess more for its intended purpose, but when you have either a transformer or in my case, a compressor on a monitor top refrigerator where the leads have lost their natural rubber insulation, I've used that stuff to actually salvage the unit because you can pack that in there and it's almost like potting compound and it re-insulates the leads.
Yeah, I've seen it used that way on one other site as kind of an intermediate repair between a junction of wires to, like you say, to the inside of a transformer or something like that. Okay, it looks like I'm done.
All right, my only problem with that stuff, anywhere you look on the can or the different brands of it, has nothing to do with the voltage rating on it, which, as you know, most of our wiring, our hookup wire is 300 volts and electrical wiring out in the field is 600 volts. So just beware of that.
Probably not a good thing to use to separate high voltage from a nearby ground or another wire.
Correct.
But it works really good on the speaker and it stays flexible.
Great idea. Rick Scoba, you're sharing the screen here. We're seeing the Japanese navigator or radio man with your key and the radio parallel to it. Very neat. Thanks for sharing that. Okay, Neville, you're up.
All right. Well, this one started out here, unmute. This one started out as it's dedicated to Gary D'Amico. And because he asked me the question, everybody hearing me okay?
Yes.
Okay. He asked me the question, how come some radios, when you bring a magnet next to them, get louder or quieter, like this? Here's a magnet, and if you bring it near the radio, you can see its sensitivity drops. Sometimes they get more sensitive when you bring a magnet next to them. So the question is, what the heck is happening? And I did manage to answer it with the help of a little device from Amazon, which is a miniature network analyzer. Now, if you remember Professor Lippman's presentation there from a couple of weeks ago, or last month, he had one of these, a real device in the background, an 8753 as I recall, and which is a very fine device, but also costs many thousands of dollars. So this
I
is
got mine for $1,000 on eBay.
Yeah, well, I have one also. This is my kid radio that I bought in 1965 or thereabouts. It still works. And so I can actually show what happens when you do bring a magnet next to a radio. And what I can do here is poke it next to the antenna coil. And you'll see, if we get right down on the display here, a little dip in yellow. This thing is basically a fancy grid dip meter. And if I move the tuning dial of the radio, you can see that that dip moves around and we'll move up the dial. Right now it's sweeping from 100 kilohertz to 1.1 megahertz. So you're able to come in there with a magnet. Now when you bring the magnet in, what happens? Well, if you can see it here, it actually moves that resonance up, moves it up in frequency. And conversely, if I bring a piece of ferrite involved and add a little more ferrite to the antenna, it moves down in frequency. So Prof. Lindemann is showing here, and I'm not, you're apparently not broadcasting my screen.
No, we've got your screen.
Oh, we do? Okay, because I saw Prof. Lindemann here. So anyway, there's the ferrite out there, and you can see the little blip move down a little bit, not a lot. But what is this good for? And the answer is, and how did I use it to fix a radio? Well, when the manufacturers built these sets, they only gave us 2 knobs, but we got 3 variables. We've got the local oscillator, we've got the dial face, and we've got the front end tuned circuit. And we only have knobs on the oscillator, on the low end of the dial. So if you got a radio that goes deaf below about 1 megahertz, bring a magnet near it. You may find out that it gets more sensitive. Well, as you can see with this radio, what that did is raise the resonance of the antenna circuit. So you can tell that now you have too much inductance in the antenna coil. So what you got to do is come in there and peel off a few turns. This will allow you to align the radio's antenna circuit to match the dial and the oscillator simultaneously if you have one that's way off. And indeed, the RCA tube set that I showed earlier was way off. It was down around 470 kilohertz when it should have been at 530. So I took 5 turns off and it works just fine. So why does this happen? Well, Prof. Lindemann showed it last time in his lecture on the pins being magnetized. And for the heck of it, here's a BH curve. And I'll try to bring this back out here. That very much like Prof. Lindemann's demonstration from last time. And unlike Prof. Lindemann's nails and pins, our radio coils need to be low loss. The area inside this thing represents hysteresis loss, which in ferrites we try to minimize as much as possible. So I've drawn it as a black line here. It's not the scale in inductance, but the slope of that line represents the inductance of the coil. So as you can see, if you add a magnetic field which is going this way, the inductance changes. So here's a nifty trick. You can use a physics experiment by Prof. Lindemann to tune a radio. How about that?
Leave it to you to figure that out again, Neville.
It's really cool.
So once again, if you got a radio that when you bring a magnet, this works to align the bottom end of the dial. So when you have a radio that is deaf on the bottom end of the scale, bring a magnet near the antenna. It works for ferrite antennas, by the way. And if it gets more sensitive, you got to take turns off. If it keeps getting less sensitive, you got to add a couple of turns. So
Neville,
what it is.
Neville, the next step is to put some turns on the ferrite and run a DC current through it so you can tune the radio from across the room with a DC current.
Yeah, okay. We'll make ourselves a a Yig oscillator out of a hunk of ferrite.
Hey, Neville,
Yes, sir.
why don't you just tape a magnet in the center of the radio?
That's cheating.
That sort of reminds me a little bit of that tool that's got a brass plug on one end and a ferrite plug on the other for checking your resonance point.
It's exactly the same effect.
Just move the speaker closer to the antenna.
You go. Just turn the speaker 90 degrees. So,
Thank you for that, Neville. That's wonderful, as usual. Anybody else? Anybody I missed?
A few pictures, Rich, of the Garrett radio cabinet. Got some opportunity to work on it today with the nice warm weather.
Well, that's good to hear. We look forward to seeing that one, Lou. All right, Aaron, you're up.
Okay, well, I hope you can see what I'm going to show here. It's not going to come out too good.
Looks like a black cat.
Yeah, sort of. And you see it says Amplion on there?
Oh, yeah.
Nice.
This is not something I would normally buy because, well, they cost a lot of money. And it came from the collection of Dick Herf. Now, I'm sure some of you remember him. Ray knows him as Richard. And
I know him as Dickie Hertz.
Same guy. And he purchased this thing. I'll tell you what it is first. It is a model AR-114, and it sold for $27.50 in 1925. But Dickie, as you called him, paid $700 for it at Kutztown a few years back. And he brought it over to our table, sat it down there, and made me nervous looking at it sitting on the table. I removed the reproducer because it just comes right off, slides right off of it. And I stuck it in his motorhome. But I kept the horn and I stuck it up real high on top of stuff that we had at the table. And I took my cell phone, which at that time was a flip phone, and I had a lot of 30s music stored in it. And I used rubber bands and taped it to the horn, and I had it sitting there playing. Well, people would come by and they'd stop and look at it and ask what was going on. Well, this one guy came by and stopped and says, "You got the reproducer for it?" I says, "Yeah." He says, "What do you want for it?" Well, I knew Dick paid $700 for it, so I thought, well, I'll just throw out a wild number. I said, $1,000. Well, he wanted to buy it. Well, it wasn't mine to sell. And the guy got a little perturbed when I told him, I said, "I can't sell it to you." So that's my story.
All right, thanks, Aaron. Who else? Who else has got their hand up? John Cummer.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Number one, I want to thank Marv for a very nice issue of the newsletter. I read it last night, especially the article about that mystery place, that barn, or whatever it is. I want to thank Marv for putting out a good issue. He always does, but I especially enjoyed that article.
Welcome.
Oh, you there, Marv?
Yeah, thank you. You're welcome.
Yeah, no, it's very nice. Anyway, also I want to show this show and tell thing. It's a, no, I don't deal with transistor radios, but this is in the box. It's a universal one, and you can see it even, let me get it up here. It has all the stuff in it. It has an original 9-volt battery. Let me pull it out here. A 9-volt battery. It has a earphone thing, and it has this. This is apparently some kind of battery eliminator or a power supply. You would
an
plug
operator killer.
I never saw one until I got one of these, but it is a universal battery eliminator. You plug it in, and then you could plug your radio into it. It looks very dangerous. It's like,
hey John.
Yeah.
John. Yeah, this is Sal. When I was young, my father had a 9-volt battery charger, and it looked like that. And you just put your 9-volt battery in it, and you plug it in. I mean, there's no switch mode power supplies and nothing. And he wanted to see if it was working, so he put it out, and then he licked it. and he jumped back, and obviously there was just probably a diode and a resistor in there or something. So he got like 120 volts on his tongue. Anyway.
That's the first time. That's the kind of thing I'd rather. I don't know what's worse, this or like a resistive line cord to play with. Either one, they're dangerous.
Right.
The only other thing I had a question for Dave Sika, if he's around. I don't know.
He's there. Here, yep.
I don't know if you ever saw this. It's hard to see. This is I found this recently. It's a January 1954 issue of the IRE proceedings. It's about 400 pages, and it's the second color television issue, and has 400 pages. Have you ever seen this? I don't know if you have any interest in this TV stuff.
I've seen a picture of it, but I've never actually seen the publication itself. Yeah, that's kind of a famous illustration, that flag.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, maybe next time I see, if we ever have a meet again, I could. Now here's a picture of some, all kinds of different articles in here, and but I'll try to bring it next time. And plus, there's tons of advertising. But it is, I don't know. It is an interesting thing. So I just thought I'd show that to you. And one other TV thing, I don't know if you ever saw this book. It was this published in the year 2000 in the UK. It's about John Baird. Have you ever seen this one?
I have not seen that one, no.
All right, it's a picture book just of Baird's TVs. And of course, it's hard to show this. It's a big size. It said here, published in 2000, and they only made 500 copies of it. It's well, here's a picture of an interesting Baird TV from that period. I don't know how well it's showing up, but it says it's a modern home entertainment. As illustrated by the Baird Deluxe television receiver built before the war, has a 15-inch cathode ray CRT, all-wave radio, automatic and record-changing gramophone, and a cocktail cabinet on the side. I don't know if that is showing up really, but
it is. It is.
Okay. Anyway,
that's where you keep your warm beer.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Which I still don't understand the warm beer and ale they have, but anyway. But that's the show and tell for today. It's the TV stuff and that transistor radio with the tongue electrode, and also to thank Marv for that wonderful issue and that great article on that mystery place, wherever it was. Anyway, that's all.
All right, thank you, John, and thanks for the shout out to Marv, because it was a great, almost a magazine this month in that article too.
Yeah, I mean, it's always I always like reading the Broadcaster, but that no one ever mentions it, but I want to thank Marv for doing a good job on that and the other issues in the past.
Absolutely. All right, thank you, John.
The reason the Brits drink warm beer is they have Lucas refrigerators.
All right, I think most of us got that.
Lucas, the Prince of Darkness.
You mean Lucas, the King of Darkness?
All right, anybody I miss? Anybody else?
Yeah, how about me?
Oh, okay. How about you? All right, Paul, go ahead.
I have a couple items for show and tell, but my better half is retired for the night, but we have a 50th anniversary tomorrow. So I just thought I'd bring that up. That's the unusual show and tell.
Well, you're going to bring her out and show us that you've been married to her for 50 years?
Well, I think she's hiding.
Okay.
I didn't know what we're gonna do. I mean, we've been in the house for 3 or 4 months now, you know?
And Paul, she hasn't killed you in your sleep even once yet in 50 years. That's amazing.
Not successfully. My restless leg syndrome makes it a little tough on her sometimes. But it's been a real joy, a couple of kids. And I think we're gonna celebrate once we're able to get out and do things safely.
Now, she doesn't go out in the backyard in the middle of the night and start digging holes in the garden, does she?
You wouldn't want to see what's out there because my neighbor took down maybe an acre's worth of bamboo. And it looks like somebody's been digging out there.
Well, congratulations, Paul.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I'm married, happily married for 15 years. I'm married for 35 years, but 15 I'm happy.
Okay, Henny Youngman jokes now. All right, here we go.
I thought we'd have something a little different.
My father once told me, John, I've been in love with the same woman for 25 years. If your mother ever found out, she'd kill me.
Buddy Hackett joke, okay. All right, Paul, that's it?
That's it. Just thought I'd put that out.
All right, congratulations. Group congratulations to you and your wife, Paul. It's an amazing thing, absolutely amazing.
I don't think we can celebrate until I get a haircut.
Okay, anybody else?
Yeah, how about me?
Rick Scoba again. No, you got your hand up. Who said yeah? Oh, Professor Mike.
Nope, that was Bill.
That was me. My hand's been up for the last hour.
Yeah, let's go with Bill, and then I'll go afterwards.
Okay, Bill, go ahead.
Who's this me guy? I'm sorry, Harry?
Go ahead, Bill.
Okay. Yeah, my show and tell got a mic here. This is a Reslo made in the UK ribbon mic. It's the same model that the group that used to be known as the Quarrymen used to use, later known as the Beatles. It's a ribbon mic, and as far as how I got it, God, probably 15, 20 years ago, there was a guy that used to frequent the Hamfest with a van, and he had new mics in boxes. And this is one of them I picked up. It's from 1960s. It was brand new in the box. It's a ribbon mic, and it's a Reslo RBH. So that you can see the. And when Darren brought out his Shure advertising sign, reminded me of something I picked up also. Let's see if I can pick this up here. It's a Electro Voice dealer display. It's backlit with a fluorescent. It's not backlit right now. It's got a fluorescent fixture. It's got a fluorescent fixture behind it. Trying to hold the mic and hold the camera, not too coordinated. And it's got a space inside to mount microphones for display. So someday I'd like to get that up and working. My original show and tell was this 3-dialer I've been talking about. I picked this up on eBay. It was I literally picked it up locally. It's a 3-dialer. The name on the front is Crescent. I've been unable to find anything on it, but when I took it apart to clean it, I don't think you can see it. Let me turn the light on here. The inside front panel, you actually can't see it, the capacitor's in the way. It has a different name on the inside, named Carnival. So I was able to find something with the name Carnival on the Radio Museum. So whether it's the same circuit as what I have, I don't know. But if anybody can give me the information on Crescent or Carnival, it will be interesting. That's all I have.
Are we going to hear this in the next DX contest?
It does work. I actually powered it up with a couple of D cells and about 7 or 8 9-volts, so it does work.
All right.
All right, Bill, thanks. All right, Professor Mike, you're up.
Okay, so this is in the spirit of what Neville did a number of years ago. Remember, he brought in a 3D printer and printed knobs, or radio knobs. So this is a CNC mill that I picked up for $250. I'm going to quickly share my screen here. So this is the, whoops. Can you see this?
So just okay.
Yeah, so this is it's just a simple CNC mill. Now I'm going to stop sharing for a second. Hang on. And then what I did, this is connecting up with, is Al still there?
Yes, I am.
You recognize the circuit, Al?
Oh, yeah. Okay. Thank you.
So what I did here is this is a Fusion 360. What I did is I went to Al's website on the crystal set and then pulled the image out. And then I brought it into Fusion 360. And I'll show you, I'm going to show you a simulation of it. Let's see if we run the simulation. So this is in the simulation. It's showing you, can you see this now?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so this is a simulation of the G code that works with the mill. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing that for a second. Then I have a extra camera on my computer here. So now can you see the mill on the table there?
Yes, very good.
Okay, so that's the mill. And then I could run it, but it's
Hey, Mike, that's what they call a 2-axis machine, right?
This is the 3-axis. So it's X, Y, Z. Okay, so this is it's a CNC mill. So it has X, Y, and Z. So in this case, I was just cutting it in a plane. So I was just using 2 of the 3, basically the Z axis was just to go to a depth, but you can actually cut surfaces on it. So in any case, this is an inexpensive tool. These mills, the reason I'm bringing it to people's attention is that these mills, this price has dropped precipitously. The ones that I use in the lab are about $4,000 or $5,000. You can use them for making circuit boards and whatnot, but this is one of these Chinese knockoffs, and it's, as I said, it's at $250. It's now competitive with what you can get for what you can get a 3D printer for.
So what's your opinion of the quality of the machine?
It's really excellent. If you look very closely at it, you can see that it's, so the inexpensive machines, many of them use a belt drive. This is a ball screw drive. So it's ball screw in X, Y, and Z. And it's got anti-backlash on the leader on it. It's really excellent. So it's got a resolution of about 1/1000 of an inch.
Will it mill aluminum and steel?
Not steel. It'll do aluminum, plastic, wood, steel. It's the motor on it. It's only I think it's a 7,000 RPM motor.
Do you have spindle speed control, or there's no spindle speed control?
Oh no, you have speed control on it.
Okay.
So they're really pretty impressive, as I said. And then on top of that, this one will also accepts a laser diode, so you can use it as a laser cutter as well. The laser diode is another $150. So it's very easy to use. Again, you know, all of us are in the business of actually having to fabricate broken parts. So it's really handy for doing that. So that's all.
Is it open source software, or is there another pile of money you need there?
It's all, yeah. So Al, it's all open source. It uses a Gribble, GRBL, which is in this Fusion 360. You can export to all different types of manufacturers, but Gribble is one of the open source ones. So it's there's no extra expense on it. It comes as a kit. So but it has all the appropriate tools, And as I said, for $250, you can't go wrong.
Hey, Mike, this is Sal.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah. How long did it, aside from, programming it to cut that, once you had the program set to cut that, how long did it take to cut that crystal radio?
So if you like, I've got it set up right now. We can watch. It takes about, that cut that you see there took about 1.5 minutes.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, I'll turn it on. Hold on a second. Just give me 1 minute.
Okay. You can take 2.
Okay, hold on.
Got to turn on the 3-phase 440-volt circuit breaker.
It's got a little wand here. Okay, I'm going to start the cut. So it's running now.
And Mike, I was watching a video the other day. Somebody was making a circuit board. Apparently, instead of etching it with acid, you just etch it away with the tool.
It'll be.
That's the coolest thing I've ever seen in any Zoom meeting.
That's the best tool since the pocket fisherman.
I'll bet Phil Weingarten wished he had that back then.
Probably do a heck of a tattoo with that thing.
So now, can you can slow down the spindle speed, and can you slow down the feeds on the axes?
Yes, you can. So it's almost done, by the way.
So in theory, it should be able to do at least aluminum if you slow down the feeds, right?
Oh yes. So speeds, the speeds and feeds it's the name of the game. These automatic machines.
By any kind of machining, I think generally.
Okay, there it is. It's finished. So it's. So I don't know if you can see it there. So the bit that I had in it looks like it was a dull bit, but it's but I think you get the idea of how it runs pretty quickly, and it really does a nice job.
Thank you for the demonstration, Mike. That's really cool.
Yeah, so that's, in any case, I think the issue is that it's just the prices drop like a brick. You know, it's with all of these gadgets, and it gets to the point where you can just have it at home. You remember when printers first came out?
Yeah.
They were really expensive. Now it costs more for the ink cartridges than it does for the printers.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay, so that's it for me.
All right, thanks, Mike. Thanks for processing. Appreciate that. All right,
Impressive.
John Riccolo,
Yes.
you have your hand up.
Okay, hang on. I'll make it quick, I promise.
Where are you going?
Well, hang on, got to reverse the camera. I'm going to give you a very brief tour of the, I'll try not to pan too fast. I know that's, this is the Johnnytronics Mini Museum. That's in my foyer. So on top here, we have an RCA tombstone and a Philco 20 or 21, whatever the heck it is, and a General Electric fish mouth. And we'll go through it. Obviously, we're not going to go through this one item at a time. Don't get scared. I'll make it quick. Down at the bottom here, I figured I'd save the best for first. This is a, Larry beat me to the Blonder tongue thing, but this one's autographed by Mike Blonder and Ben Tongue. And I brought it to one of our meetings. Ben was looking at it, and he put his finger through the speaker. And I said to him, you know, I said, Ben, I was surprised. You know, that thing sounds pretty good. It's an FM, you know, table radio. I said, that thing sounds pretty good. And he goes, well, of course it does. So I meant, no, they were obviously very proud of the. So just real quick, we'll go shelf by shelf here. I don't know how good the light is. These are keys up here at the top. Here's one of those little, I had one of these when I was a kid, these little code practice oscillators. They were like 99 cents. I guess Lou doesn't like this stuff. He left. Okay, some transistor radios here. This is real. This is, I got this at a yard sale. I wish I had the rest of the, you know, 66 Impala or Caprice or Chevelle that went with it, but what are you gonna do? Crystal radios and some Zenith, including a really cool Zenith Golden Triangle. And that's a Heathkit crystal radio. Here's one of those Japanese novelty sets that looks like a Mercedes grill. This guy is a hybrid, but I can't get it open to look at the sub-miniature tubes. This shelf has on, I don't know if any of you remember, I know Tom Provost does, I don't know how many other people would. Bob Dennison was a member of our club. He has since passed away and built some wonderful homebrew radios. So this shelf is sort of dedicated to him. And at the bottom, we have the legendary SW3 and a national knob, and I think there's a Princess phone under there. Over here, we have all kinds of assorted junk, little stuff and stuff that's in here for ha-has and ham radio stuff. This is a, I always wanted a real one. I know some club members have them. This is a toy BC611 handy talkie. It even says Motorola handy talkie on it. I can get it back in there. And this shelf has more assorted stuff on it. This is a World War II German field telephone, which is very interesting. Got that at Kutztown, I think, from Joe Pentrovato. This was a nice gift, a freebie from what's his name? Ed Suhaka. And his father apparently pilfered these from the what was the destroyer? Very famous World War II destroyer here. O'Bannon. That was a very famous, known as the fightingest ship. And it came from the O'Bannon sonar room. And at the bottom, I can't see. Oh, at the bottom, I see Sal's basement ceiling. I don't know.
Hello.
Hi, Sal. How you doing? So at the bottom, there's more stuff. Halicrafter Sky Buddy, Halicrafter Echophone, and here's something I saw yesterday. Looking at this stuff made me a little sad. Got this card, I guess, last year. It was supposed to be there the 8th and 9th. And that's about it. I'll keep, and that's on top of the radio is one of those novelty mics. And some other assorted junk. That's about it.
Hey, John?
Yes.
That Heathkit Crystal Radio, have you used it?
not in many years. It did not work very well. I really have to open it up and see if somebody botched something up.
Okay, because it's supposed to be legendary. I was wondering how good it really is.
For me, it was not, but I gotta get back to it. I don't have a lot of patience with crystal radios. Here's an interesting little. It's in a Ziploc bag. This is a 2N32 transistor. This is a point contact transistor, not a junction transistor. So that's pretty early. You know, I don't know. I won one of our contests. I forget why. Yeah, that's it.
All right, John, the next show and tell, could you show us your workbench?
This was enough of an embarrassment, you know. Workbench. Well, I mean, I hope you'll like it.
Here.
The workbench is really, really ugly. Hey, here's the dining room table, though. Check this out. Needs cleaning. I'm without adult supervision.
About to say that myself.
There are many of us in that camp.
By the way, I have one of those Heathkit crystal radios. They work really well.
No, I'm glad to hear that. I got to get back to it. I have a decent long wire antenna, not a great one. And I was not impressed the one time I tried it, but that could have been me.
They're supposed to be very high fidelity.
It's really fine. I mean, it really works well. I've got about a half a dozen crystals, including the federal set, and it's really one of the most sensitive crystal sets I've got. It's got, I think it's a 1N34 diode in it.
Well, and the key to it is it's double tuned.
Exactly.
Yeah, the other key to it is it's a Heathkit, and you just never know.
Yeah, it's impedance matched. So look at Al's website.
Yeah, I think Miller made one too, similar to the Heathkit.
Yeah, I know theirs is very well regarded. I have to try it again.
I got a question. Is that one of those crystal sets where you have a series tuned resonant in the antenna and then it's loose coupled to a parallel tuned resonant circuit?
I don't recall. Maybe Al knows.
I don't remember exactly. It's two tuned circuits. I'm not sure the input is a series tuned setup, and I don't know that it has variable coupling. But they laid it out pretty well that you tune the antenna and tune the and then tune the secondary. And I haven't gotten to play with one, but I can imagine they work a whole lot better than your run of the mill crystal set.
Yeah, the BC14 is the only model that I can think of right at the moment that does that pretty much, but that's got a series tuned resonant antenna, and that's nice because then it matches the whole thing up, which is kind of nice. So
Marconi got it right very beginning.
yes, sir.
Okay, anybody else? I'm missing anyone?
There's 4 hands up yet. I don't know if they just didn't put them back down or if they still. Bill Zukowski, John's iPhone, Darren, and Aaron.
We got all those guys.
Okay.
I just put my hand down. That was John's iPhone.
Well, I got a little piece of humor for you.
Go ahead, Darren.
It's a horrible humor. So, you made me think about this when you mentioned the liquid electrical tape, and I don't know how many guys here used to fix TVs. I know I used to. And we had a product back then that I think if I did a little creative advertising, I could make some serious money and wind up in state housing for the rest of my life. This is some genuine bona fide Corona dope, guaranteed to stop television arcing. And on the side, it says it'll prevent the coronavirus. Simply inhale product and you will die quickly enough so that you will not contract the coronavirus. So here you go. Here's your TV Corona dope.
Well, like you said, Darren. Okay. All right. Anybody else?
I got something quick. I wanted to show. Sal, are you paying attention? Okay. Recognize that? he was showing this off while he was walking around. This was the playbill and a couple of the tickets back in 2007 for when we had the World of Worlds over at Sarnoff. And Sharon saved ours and framed it up. So we've had this hanging in our dining room. So I wanted Sal to see it because he showed his off.
Okay, great, great. All right, is that everybody?
I can
Tom
show
Provost.
something else, but let Tom go.
Well, I was going to say Tom has his hand up. I don't know if he meant to.
Thought I lowered it. Let me take another.
Hey, Tom? Tom?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So do I just click on raised hand to make it go down or what?
Well, it's down now. When it's up, you click on lower hand.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm good.
You're good.
I think.
All right, then it's after 10 o'clock. Let's officially end the meeting. I think we had a great meeting. The show and tell worked out well. And we had a lot of participants and nobody really stepped on each other, which is nice. You know, we'll do it again. I guess we will do it again. I just want to say that next month we will be Zooming again, more than likely. And that would be our June 12th meeting. And that meeting, we will be having the guest presenter, Professor Joe Jessen. And he will be telling us everything we didn't know about the AR-88 boat anchor. And I went to his bios, and you'll see an abstract in his bios soon on the communicator. And he's quite a guy, and he knows a hell of a lot about the AR-88. So I think it would be a good idea during his presentation that everybody who has an AR-88 bring it in and hold it up on the screen. That is a joke for anybody that doesn't own an AR-88. I'm sorry. Yes.
It only weighs 273 pounds or whatever it is.
So Rick,
Come on, John, 102.
On site.
And I thought the R390A was heavy.
Rich?
Yes.
One thing I should have mentioned before we sign off. So the engineering school just got a new dean. It's Andrea Goldsmith. She's a professor from Stanford. And she is an expert in a field, I'm learning about it now. It's called cognitive radio. And it's a follow-on from spread spectrum. And it's the future of radio. I think we should get her, after she starts in September. I think we can invite her to give one of our talks.
Mike, stop it right there. You're hired.
So, and she just got the Marconi Prize this year for her work in cognitive radio.
Okay, I'm going to have to look up that word and radio together and see what that means. That's,
So what it is, it has to do with, you know, the problem with just cramming enough channels into a band.
Yes.
So the idea, it's related to the idea of spread spectrum. It basically, you know, if you have a quiet section of the band, it basically I believe it's an automatic system that basically fills up the entire bandwidth. So it's so in other words, you know how when we have stations, you know, we obviously you broadcast on a particular frequency. So there's some kind of coordination. You have to look it up. It's there's a Wikipedia page on it. There's it's relatively new. It seems to be one of the hottest things in the spread spectrum field. Spread spectrum was created, I believe Al probably knows all about this. It was World War II. Hedy Lamarr was the idea of to prevent jamming. during World War II.
With player pianos.
Player pianos. Yeah, she was a piano player, right? She did.
No.
Or
Her agent was a piano player, and she and he invented it, and it was for torpedoes to avoid being tracked.
And degaussing is in there someplace too.
Well, it's what becomes frequency hopping spread spectrum. And if both the transmitter and the receiver know the song, then they tune to the same frequencies.
Okay.
Right.
So in any case, she's, this is her thing. And I think, she's clearly, and I think she would be clearly be a good speaker for us.
Okay, what's her name again?
Andrea Goldsmith.
Okay, great, great. We look forward to seeing her and hearing her. That'd be wonderful. Thank you, Mike. Okay, again, the meeting is adjourned. I want to give a shout out to Steve Henthel for showing up. Really appreciate seeing Steve, and we'd appreciate him being a member even more. So Steve, there's a couple of people in the club that are going to work you over about becoming a member. We definitely need your smarts. You know that, don't you? Where are you? Now, you can say something. Go ahead, say something. Unmute. Unmute.
You scared him off, Rich.
No. There we go.
Strong.
There you go.
There we go. I was just looking for my Alt A. There we go. I got it, Rich.
All right. So obviously, Al and Dave are looking to recruit you, and certainly I would too. So we definitely would like to to Shanghai you into the club.
Well, you're really looking for trouble now, aren't you?
Steve, are you in Alpine?
No, actually, I'm at home in Pennsylvania.
Uh-huh. Okay.
But there was a time when he was in Alpine.
There was a time. I did actually live on site for 6 months. Yeah, I actually did. But right now I'm back home in Pennsylvania. Yeah.
Okay. Pete Olin was with us. It was very good to see Pete Olin. He didn't get the chance to speak, but he certainly had his issues with his health, and it's just really nice to see him. So I'm going to officially sign off from my duties as president and club coordinator this evening. So everyone chat amongst themselves, and safe drive home, and obviously stay safe amongst the virus.
Take care, Rich. Take care, guys.
All right, guys.
Night, Rich.
Take care, guys.
Good night.
Good night, Rich. Thanks.
Bye.
Night, everybody.
Good night, Earl.
Good night, all. Thanks for this.
Good night.
See you next one. Good night. Bye. Good night, all.
Bye.
Good night, all. Great meeting. Thank you.
Hey, Bob Bennett, you still on?
Yes.
I started installing the power steering in my 58.
Really?
Yeah. So I took the old gearbox out and other parts, and then I put the steel plate that adapts the 605 to the frame of the 58. So you found that on eBay for me. You told me about it because mine was missing. And now I'm just looking to get the rag joint that connects the gearbox to the steering column.
Yeah, the rag joint should be a really easy find. The nice thing about that plate is that it's all bolt together. You don't have to do any ridiculous mods or welding or cutting or any of that kind of stuff. And when I found out about it, I thought of you right away.
Right. Yeah. So thank you. And someone was talking about the Harbor Freight tools. Long story short, I had to cut a 3/8 inch Allen key because I couldn't get it inside to tighten the gearbox to the frame. So I said, let me go to Harbor Freight and buy Allen keys. So they had a whole set of 8 Allen keys for $1.99, regular price. So, because I didn't want to cut mine, my good one. So what I do, I actually didn't grab a Craftsman one, but the wrong size. and I cut it, you know, with my angle grinder, right? Okay, and it doesn't fit there. I'm looking at what the hell's going on. I looked at it and said, "You stupid schmuck! I grabbed the wrong one." But what I want to say is, when I cut the Harbor Freight one, it was as tough to cut that one than I mean, I used my angle grinder. I figured it's just gonna go through like butter. No. So
that's why they shatter quicker. It's a harder metal.
Yeah.
Right. You know, and I just wanted it for one use only, just to tighten those 3 bolts. So, but anyway, so I mean, I got the car on jack stands right now. I'm also, I got the exhaust manifold loose because I'm putting new gaskets on it, and the what else I got? I got and the motor mount, because one of my motor mounts is broken, so I got to put a motor mount in it. So hopefully in a couple of weeks I get the car back on the road. I'm going to a show tomorrow morning, coffee and cars. So with my Cutlass.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
I got to drop out of here, but before I go, I wanted to just give a shout out to Steve. And Steve, I never met you in person, but I did get to tour the facility. I think it was some 10 or 11 years ago. And I had my wife and a couple other people with me, and it was just really impressive. And it was probably the greatest endeavor I've done, you know, having with the club in 22 years, to actually have the privilege to go actually see the Armstrong site.
Oh, that's great. I'm really glad you enjoyed it. That's wonderful to hear that.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, and I brought my little movie camera, so I did a little YouTube video and put it up there. And it was really funny because you see my wife, she's actually looking up at the tower, and she sees the steps, and she got really excited. She goes, "You know, I want to climb that tower." and I said, "No, it's not a good idea." "No, it should be all right." I said, "No, I did not." And I said, "No, I did not bring bail money."
Yeah, that's funny. Well, all you got to do is get infinite insurance, and there shouldn't be any problem at all. Tell her as long as she has liability out the wazoo.
Needless to say, Steve, we had about a 1+ hour car drive to go home. I live in central New Jersey, and I explained to her all the different types of RF that was in that area, and that's probably why they don't let you climb the tower.
Well, yeah, that and a number of other things. That's for sure. But it's kind of a quick climb. It's only 400 feet, and you can do it in about 20 minutes if you're in shape, you know. Unless you want to come, you can come down in a hurry if you want to come down in a bosun's chair.
Well, I'm in shape, but I don't know how long it would take me to climb up there, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, that's right. But it's really not a bad climb at all. It's really not. And the view is absolutely spectacular.
Yeah, I got some great pictures. I still have I have everything on my computer. It was just a thrill to just go through that and see all the history and how it's set up now.
Yeah, it's definitely as many times as I've been there, I still get goosebumps every time I'm there when I just think about the history and the work that went on there that the major did with it is the site of the world's very first FM broadcast station, plus all the military work that was done there by the major and his crew, you know, in conjunction with Camp Evans and all, and the radar work. Yeah, it really is a goosebump place to be. No doubt about it.
Yeah, Steve, it's a sacred ground for us.
It
really
is. Absolutely. That's exactly it, Rich. It really is. And it's always a thrill to just to be able to go there. And I'm just so happy that the Sacrament family has preserved it as much as they have. And because they certainly could have torn the original buildings down and even torn the original tower down to make it more practical for modern communications, but thank God they have a sense of history and respect for Major Armstrong, and that's why we still have it today. It's really Chuck and his 2 sisters we have to thank for that. That's for sure.
What about here's the the herding question. When is the the next transmission?
Boy, I don't know. I've been trying to get my transmission line problem solved over there, but the guys have been pretty busy. Apparently they're telling me there's a short in my line somewhere up at the 400-foot level, and they went to borrow it one day to demo the site, for a prospective client, and they discovered this with a TDR, a time reflection, and I don't know when they're going to be able to get it straightened out. I've been bugging them, but they've got a pretty heavy workload right now. So weather's getting nice. I got to start bugging them some more, because I miss it. I want to get back over there and fire up. I mean, definitely.
Yeah, we all do. We all do. Yeah.
I've got at least 2 more years on the license right now, but I'm sure it won't be any problem getting another renewal. The commission's been really good about that, so they gave it to me for 5 years again. So which is just great. I'm so fortunate.
The other thing I thought. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Aaron.
Steve, is there any tie-in to Fairleigh Dickinson College with the
Well,
Alphi site?
Yes, Fairleigh Dickinson has their FM transmission facility there. In the past couple of years, I had converted that over to full HD, and it's a brand new Nautel rig that's in there now. So yeah, they've been on site since 1971. That's where they started. So yeah, they're still there and going gangbusters. Yeah, definitely.
Well, the reason I asked that is my son went to college there over 20 years ago, and he took me to a site which I'm sure was Alpine, but I didn't understand the significance at the time, but he took me there.
Must have been, because it's been there since Fairleigh Dickinson went on the air with their station in 1971, and that's where they did it, right there in the tower, and it's still there. It's still in the same place. In fact, they have their transmission facility is in its own little standalone building there. That's at the base of the tower. It's not in the main equipment room, but it has its own little building right there on site. Yeah, it's a great broadcast location. It really is.
Thank you.
Sure.
It worked out really well during 9/11, because then we had some.
Right.
The TV, there was a number of TV channels, and analog at the time, of course, but picked up the ball after the towers had dropped. So that was kind of cool.
Chuck really jumped on that as quickly as he could. Yep, and most of the major network facilities that were put out of commission with World Trade's collapse did temporarily locate over there at the site. The only people that weren't too happy were the neighbors, because the field strength that was generated, was keeping people's lights on, garage door openers were, falsing and all that kind of thing. But, other than that, yeah, it was a lifesaver, definitely.
I can relate to that. I'm a ham, and I used to have one of those old Heathkit, what was it, Apache. It was a big AM transmitter, like 100 watt.
Right.
And I used to key that thing up, and we have this thing that holds our flat screen. And as soon as I hit the dummy load, the thing would just light it up. There's lights inside of it. It would just come on its own. And then my wife knew I was downstairs playing with that thing.
Yeah, that's right. It can be a pain in the neck to someone that's not familiar with what's going on. But yeah, it's in fact, I remember Chuck tried to keep the neighbors happy. Once every month, they have a fellow come in and do a field strength reading around the site, just verify that everything is within, normal commission limits, that nothing's being violated or anything like that. But yeah, but the last time it's had high field strength was after 9/11, but now things are pretty calm over there.
Is that tower located just north of the GW bridge?
It's like right between the GW and the Tappan Z. I always get the numbers mixed up. It's 9 from one and 8 from the other, but it's so
8 from the GW to Steve.
Yeah, that's it. It's essentially right in the center. Yeah, just about within a mile. That's
and one thing you're leaving out is having to do with the neighborhood that the tower is in, or at least the neighborhood that the tower became. The zip code of of Alpine is one of the wealthiest zip codes in America.
Yep.
So they talk about McMansions. There are no McMansions in this neighborhood. They're just all mansions. And they always put up a serious fight over the years about the tower in general. But you can take it from that, Steve.
It's kind of absurd because the tower's been there since 1937, and they had full awareness of what was going on in the neighborhood. They really did. And I remember when I was living there, I went through, I think it was Zillow at the time, the real estate site. And I was just looking at some of the properties that were up for sale on Timberline Drive, and that's the residential street that's just south of the tower, the very first one to the south. And most of those homes were in the $15 to $20 million range at that time. They had things like indoor swimming pools and tennis courts indoors and all that. Oh yeah, it's insane what those values are worth there. So I just hope that Chuck doesn't get tempted to think about selling the land, and boy, he'd be a multi-millionaire overnight if he sold to a developer. If the town would let him. I'm not even sure if Alpine, the town of Alpine, would allow more development. They do keep that kind of under control there. They're pretty strict about things like that.
How many acres is it, Steve?
I had a feeling you were going to ask me that. I did know the exact number. I think it's between 14 and 18 acres, something like that.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful property. I mean,
yeah.
it's all wooded,
Yeah.
Absolutely beautiful. And 20 minutes from Manhattan, it's just ideal.
Well,
I wish I could have stayed there. I hated to leave.
Well, it's better for me. It's 11 minutes from my house.
I know. I'm jealous of you. You're up in Piermont, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's gorgeous there. You must have some great views of the Tapestry. I guess I shouldn't say Tapestry. It's Cuomo now, right?
No, it's always and always will be the Tappan Zee Bridge.
That it is to me. That's for sure. Yeah. Yeah, Dave Terwilliger read me the riot act about that.
Oh, yeah.
So absolutely, I agree with you guys. Absolutely.
I remember as a kid, there used to be, I think there still is, a scout camp in Alpine. We used to go there
right.
a couple of times a year. And this is back in the 80s. And I remember very early 90s. And I remember they were building on a lot of those big mega mansions at that time. There were some there, but they were building more of them. And I remember when we drive through, we'd see some of these houses, and it was just incredible, the size of those houses.
Yeah, it's scary. Really, if you're ever in the area, you get Timberline Drive. I think you can. I don't recall if it has security access, but I think you could still drive through there. You take a look at some of those properties. It's unbelievable. They're essentially right on the South Alpine fence line, and the Boy Scout property is just north of the tower site. It's very close, not far away at all.
Yeah, I remember we could see the tower from the campsite, and I remember always being curious about it.
Yeah.
Back in the 60s, when I was flying with Mohawk Airlines as a young first officer, I stayed with the airlines 33 years. And in those days, you go VFR more than half the time. 3/4 of the time you go VFR, and that was coming down from Albany. Well, that was the first beacon we had. You had the Alpine beacon and the Wiley Post beacon. I don't know if you're familiar with that, on top of the GW. I think the Wiley Post beacon, that was a light beacon, and probably the only one on the East Coast, maybe the only one alive. I don't know if it's still there or not, but that was very historical, and that was always had Alpine beacon. That was one word.
How about that? I didn't know about that. Didn't know about that at all.
Yeah.
You mentioned
big light on the top of the tower there, on the right side of the river, coming into probably Newark at that time.
I had heard that some of the commercial pilots just use it, as just to line up their I guess their flight path on. They're just used to seeing it visually, just visually seeing it. because I can remember just laying out there on the grass and looking up and seeing all the planes. It looked like they were almost, you know, coming right along in parallel to it, you know, like they were using it as a marker.
They probably were. We did.
Yeah. Because it sticks out like a sore thumb. I mean, you're like when you're coming across the GW, you can see it as plain as day. It's the only thing sticking up on the Palisades. It's 400 feet right on top of the cliffs. You can't miss it.
Yeah, yeah.
And the coverage is superb. I mean, you essentially can work all the way out to the far eastern end of Long Island. It's almost, you almost have direct line of sight. It's just beautiful. The major chose very wisely when he chose that location. He really, really did.
You know, you mentioned the trouble with neighbors and the tower. And it's funny because Armstrong owned more than one tower over the course of his experimenting. And one of his towers, which he donated to Columbia University, was subsequently sold to a colleague or cohort of his, Frank Gunther, who was a chief engineer of REL. And that tower wound up behind Frank Gunther's house on High Point Road in Staten Island on Toad Hill.
Right.
High Point Road is called such because it is the highest point. He basically had that property that was the highest point on the eastern seaboard. And, you know, again, it was a great place for a tower. The 1950s Staten Island, Toad Hill, was the most expensive place, which made it about as expensive as a piece of Central Jersey farmland. But, you know, as time went on and they built the bridge, all that property accelerated in value, and all the old ranch houses that were up there were bought and turned into mega mansions. And they'd follow this tax loop where they'd leave one wall standing anyhow. In those subsequent years, they battled horribly with him about that tower. They wanted that tower to come down because it was an eyesore, and they actually came to an agreement where they wound up dressing it up like a lighthouse.
Oh, geez.
And you see this phony looking lighthouse standing above all these mega mansions, and it looks ridiculous, but there it is. And that's one of Armstrong's towers, actually, that's still there.
I remember hearing about the Toad Hill facility. I'd never been over there, you know, but I remember looking at it on a topo map and seeing that part of Staten Island. It is quite high over there. It's very interesting. Yeah, that was Gunther's. That was his residence over there, wasn't it?
Yes. It certainly was, and I've got a funny story for you that some people have heard me tell before. When he passed away, there was a small estate sale at the house, and he had this really cool mid-century modern house that when I went to the estate sale, none of the electronic equipment was for sale, and we were told, oh, that's not for sale, that's spoken for. And I got a little curious about that, and I drove back up there. I used to live up there. I used to live not on Toad Hill, but I lived on the island, and I drove up there one night, and there are these two giant dumpsters outside. And so I started investigating, and sure enough, the dumpsters were full of all kinds of wonderful electronic tubes and tube testers and microphones, and you name it, it was in there. And I couldn't even get anywhere near the bottom. But that's a very expensive, exclusive area, and they have private security patrols. And so you can imagine that this was a bit of a complex endeavor. And I had a 6-cell Maglite that I was using to search the dumpster, which was half filled, and the other half was empty. And then I dropped the 6-cell Maglite into the empty half of a dumpster, which, needless to say, made a loud crash. But then I found this beautiful 30-amp Variac in the pile, which I went to pass out to my friend on the outside of the dumpster, who didn't have a firm grip on it. And the 30-amp Variac dropped on the ground, and that made another big crash. And then, but the best part of the story is, among the items in the dumpster, one of the items was this little pink Zenith Royal 500 radio. So this was actually from, I guess, Frank's family or whatever, but it was in there, as was a black one and a whole bunch of other interesting items. But somebody didn't want to sell that stuff. They wanted to put it in a dumpster.
Well, I understood that Frank's son was in the land mobile business, and I think wasn't he using his father's Toad Hill facility for his land mobile business, like as a repeater site or something at one time?
Yeah, they were in a lot of businesses. They were in the SCA subcarrier business at one time. I found a bunch of old Storecast and Muzak subcarrier receivers, and they did a lot of that stuff at one time. It's just like I said, it's just a shame that they saw fit to throw the stuff away. But there probably was a lot of history under that pile that I couldn't get to. There was a cage from some sort of REL product that had the REL badge on it, which I still have, and a few other things. But like I said, I would have been more than happy to pay for stuff, but they just were throwing it away. And the tower's still there. They're still using the tower. Just the house has been sold and torn down.
I wanted so much to meet Frank, and when I was putting my panel together, making the selections for the people that were going to be part of it, Frank had passed just before, this all came to pass. So unfortunately, I never got a chance to actually go over and meet him and speak with him because, he was a large part of the REL history. And the major had REL equipment at Alpine, and I've often wondered, what happened to it and exactly what it was. I think it was one of the Armstrong dual modulator versions, and Frank could have filled in a lot of those blanks, but unfortunately, his passing happened just too soon. It's very, very sad, unfortunately.
The sad part, and I spoke to someone after the fact who actually knew him, and I the whole situation that transpired with that stuff would seem like it wasn't what he would have wanted, because from what I was told, he was a very nice guy who believed in preserving the stuff. But I was told that he still had a lot of that stuff. And it's very troubling because, like I said, there was so much in that dumpster that I couldn't even get to see. And the fact we were working and we had to leave very quickly because we were disturbed by local rent-a-cops who were, I'll say they were polite. They just told us you can't be here, but they didn't,
Yeah, it's kind of a shame you couldn't have met with his son. Maybe he would have wanted to, preserve. So I'm just surprised at that, because I'm sure his son, being technical, would know the value of some of those things. I'm sure Frank must have had some gems,
I don't know. Now, see, I was told that when this happened, I actually knew the woman who was running the estate sale, and they were just selling like household stuff. And there was even in the living room, there was a pair of AR speakers from the 50s. And I asked about, no, none of the electronics are for sale. I was told that it was being offered to the local ham radio club. If you know anything about Sierra, they're a very closed group of people. You're not welcome, and thank you very much. But I don't know that actually happened. I don't know. And again, knowing that club, I don't know, if they really cared for it. That's the kind of club that, well, that's not the latest and greatest. They're not interested in history. But I don't know. It was an interesting experience, but it was unfortunate because I had a feeling there was a lot, and I didn't know what I know now then. So I think a lot of history was probably lost there.
Yeah, I would have tried to approach his son. I didn't find out about him until after, it was too late, and Frank had already passed, and our event kind of went by, and then I found out about it. I said, if I had known he was in the land mobile business, I myself was in that business for a while, so I would have had a lot of commonality with him. I just would have liked to have talked to him to get kind of some more input on the history of REL and that sort of thing. That's, because once it's gone for good, and you shouldn't let it get away if you can hold on to it, Yeah.
Okay, guys, anything else? Want to call it a night?
It's a night.
All right.
Hey, Yeah, what's with the Newark on your chapeau, your hat? What's the significance?
With the New Jersey Antique Radio Club, right? And Newark is a business. Newark is the biggest city in New Jersey, right?
The biggest city? Well, close, I guess. Yeah. I like down Cold Snake myself. It's nice and quiet.
Have you ever been in a faraway airport, standing in line, and somebody looks at your luggage tag and says, "Where is EWR?" That's happened to me.
Yeah. Oh, grief.
I don't know if everybody's been looking at me typing during the meeting. You can see a lot of text has been scrolling around on my screen. One of the two things I was debating on what to show was the radio related thing or the computer related thing. That's a Commodore 64 that I've got successfully hooked up to the internet this week. So I've been playing around on various BBSs all week, like you guys might have done 30 years ago. And it's just really fun that this stuff still is out there, and there's evidently still thousands of BBSs out there. And so it's been
40
really,
years ago.
It's pretty cool.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's cool.
So you have to read HTML code?
No, so there's I can show some pictures, or maybe we'll do it some other time, but I made this thing out of a Raspberry Pi that simulates the floppy drive, and then I loaded terminal software, and then I built something that simulates a Hayes modem. So basically it converts in, instead of dial tone, it uses telnet, and then it just uses whatever original code would have existed over the lines back then. So people have just reset up servers, but are just going over telnet instead of dial tone.
1200 baud, right?
Right now I'm on 1200 baud. It goes, you have to set up at 300, you have to configure the modem at 300. And then once you've done that, it can work at 1200. But I'm just smitten with it. It's just so cool.
It's funny.
It really feels matrixy watching it scroll half a line at a time was drawing the picture.
Relaunch CompuServe or something, right?
Oh, it's pretty much what it is. This is I'm not on it right now, but they relaunched Quantum Link, which was Commodore's CompuServe.
The nice thing about the 300 baud modems was if you didn't have a lot of storage, it didn't matter because it would just scroll past on the screen and you would read it and remember it.
That's good. It's a good way of looking at it.
It's just interesting to see how much, I mean, people have spent a lot of time on this stuff for fun. They've made games, they've made movies just using ASCII and stuff like that. It's really cool to goof around with something completely different.
And you can whistle the tones too.
Yeah, you can't hear the modem sound, unfortunately. The one thing that's interesting about the disk drive, I haven't got that function working, but the guys that made it, it's a cycle accurate clone of the original floppy drive. And the guys are so nerdy, they have it figured out. You know, there's an LED that shows it as if it was reading the virtual disk, the same tracks it would move on the real disk. But they also put in the provision to make a piezo motor or piezo speaker make the servo noise that the drive would make if it was spinning. Man. And that's unfortunately the only part of it I haven't gotten working, but that's pretty cool.
That is pretty cool. That's amazing.
I never learned how to whistle any tones, but I did record a 2600 hertz tone to a cassette deck one time, and we had a lot of fun with that for a while until we didn't anymore. Save some money until the phone company catches up with you.
Yeah.
Oh man, I can remember having to use 1200 baud modems at work, and what I would do is I'd hook up a telephone and whistle to trigger the modem at the far end, and that's how I knew I had my wiring correct in the comm rooms.
That's cool.
That's amazing.
And Matt, you also did a very nice job on that Weltron space helmet. I never saw a shortwave version of that.
Yeah, of course, if there was one that exists, Joe would have had it.
Joe Crow would have it. Yep.
It has AM shortwave, FM, which says MPX auto on it. So I guess that was a big important thing to mention. It says low police, VHF public service, and weather band.
Hey,
and obviously 8-track.
Can you tune in 42 to 50 low band FM on there?
It says on the police band, it says 30 to 50.
There we go. Now if you have a wideband IF on there, you can use it to tune us in over at Alpine on 42.8.
That'd be cool.
Definitely.
Hey Steve, there's
Yeah.
a Sony wireless headphone that I picked up a while ago that runs on FM and runs at about 45 megahertz. I think I'm holding on to that to see if it does the job next time you're on the air.
Oh, that's cool. That's definitely cool. Yeah, you'll have to let me know about that if that works out for you.
Yeah. Well, a lot more likely I'll hear you on that than on the two Armstrong Band FM receivers that I have, neither one of which is restored yet, and neither one of which is likely to be restored anytime soon.
Oh, it couldn't be that bad for you to get them going, you know.
Oh, you have no idea. Molasses in January outpaced me a long time ago.
I'll have to, another little piece of trivia. So that stuff that I used to make it white again was the stuff you'd use to dye your hair. Like I said, you can't just go buy it in the store. This is something I didn't know. You have to have a beautician's license to buy it at like Sally Beauty Supply, or you can just buy it on Amazon, and they obviously don't check or give a shit. But I just never thought about the fact that they wouldn't legally sell it to you. And
that's because of the phosphoric acid in it.
It's like, I don't know how you're supposed to not touch it, right? Because you put it on your hands or your gloves, but then if you take off the gloves, then you still have it on the outside of the gloves or the lid of the bottle or something. So
it really looks good.
Get on my skin, and never there'd always be a little white spot for a little while. Then eventually, it never hurt. It just immediately turned your skin white. It was just so weird.
Hey Matt, you could really channel Johnny Winter if you got any of that left.
It works really well. I actually did it on my Commodore too. So what
Who
it
doesn't
does?
know who Johnny Winters is?
I know he is. He sang this Frankenstein, right? The song.
He's albino.
Yeah, he's albino. Yeah.
It's funny.
Very good. Your knowledge of classic rock is very admirable.
Oh, I know more about classic rock than some of you guys would have, and I know shit about stuff now. So.
One of my daughters has a beautician's license, so I know the product well that you're talking about.
So, and you can use, so like I kind of was going over it, stumbling on the call a little bit earlier. So if you saw what I was doing, that handle, how the top part was a little bit wider, that was just using the normal like peroxide you use when you get scratched. And obviously it was not doing much of anything. And it would take a month to get it to do anything with that.
Boy, it really came out great because your cabinet looks like it's brand new. It's the white is just it's perfect, you know.
It's funny how bright it looks outside, because actually outside it's hard to even look at it because it was just so damn bright. In the house it's not as obnoxious, but it still is held up too. So what happens is that stuff in the peroxide reacts with I guess it's bromine that they put in plastic to help with the fire retardant. That's what makes all the plastic turn yellow. So it supposedly reverses that, then the UV and the peroxide react, and you can actually see it bubbling when it's doing that. And supposedly it doesn't seem to do anything else to hurt anything. It doesn't make it more brittle or weaker or warp it or anything that I've seen. I've done it twice, 2 different things. So
just hold your breath when you see it bubbling. Don't breathe in deep.
Yeah, that's also why you're supposed to wrap it in the Saran wrap, is to help control some of that. But
Yeah, I remember the earlier digital equipment, the DEC equipment would all turn beige from the UV from the fluorescent fixtures in rooms. Right. You know, the stuff wasn't UV stable.
Yep. Remember that too.
And really, you know, Matt, your photos don't do it justice for how disgusting that thing looked in Joe Crow's basement.
yeah, it was pretty gross. The part I didn't show was the bottom of it had a rubber, like, suction cup, you know, so they used to stick down on the table more, and that thing just turned into this huge 8-foot across blob of tar and nastiness.
Oh, man.
It took a long time to get rid of all that off the bottom.
I have an orange one, if that matters.
That's cool.
It doesn't have shortwave or police or any of that, but it is orange.
Well, if you want, Matt can turn it white for you, John.
Or at least pink.
I like it better. But like Joe's, it's getting a debasement treatment, although it's not on the floor. I really got to get that up here. That and that, see, now you guys got me free associating that and that JVC video sphere, because they're kind of cool. They're like that Weltron space helmet. They're out there.
This one's it's not a Weltron, it's Winford Hall, and I've never heard of Winford Hall. I'm assuming they were one of those little, like those Japanese no-name junk brands from that time, but it works.
It's like a Weltron, but it's not.
Yeah, it's Weltron-esque.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Like the Aquatron, there's like an Aquatron, then there's a Weltron.
It's apparently better than a Weltron if it's got short wave on it.
Yeah, and somehow I don't think Weltron ever made something with shortwave.
Yeah.
But they know it has mine has the 8-track player like that, and no, you're right. What was it called again? Winford Hall?
Yeah, Winford, I think.
Well, the Japanese were great for making up these Anglo-sounding names. Like those little cheapy 5-tube radios towards the end of the tube era. They must have made a million different colors and a million different brand names with those.
What does Camry mean in Japanese?
I don't know. And being a former owner, I'd like to know. I had one for a long time.
I think it was a name they made up to please the Western buyer, if you will.
Yeah, I don't know, because they're not called.
It does. Camry does have a name. It just went out of my head, but there is something like smoothness or happiness or something like that.
I know Celica means swan, but for some reason I thought that
Camry actually means
were not.
Well, better than the Chevrolet, their Nova, I believe in Spanish means no go.
It doesn't go, yeah.
And you got your American names. The kids today, I hear, are collecting even the Lloyds and sound design electronics that we disdained back in the day.
I don't know what's gotten into people. They buy
They see this. It's a stereo. They wouldn't know the difference between a Macintosh and a Garrard and a Lloyd's. It's all.
Oh boy, it plays records. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
I was wrong about the word Camry. It means crown in Japanese.
Richard, when I was in Hong Kong, all the taxis were called Toyota Crown.
There you go.
There you go. Must be that, yeah. Why couldn't they just use Crown? They all had 3 on the tree. You'd get in and the guy would be shifting and no automatic transmissions. I guess they were more economical that way. So Crown.
They did. The first imported line from Toyota was called the Toyota Crown in the very early 1960s. And I think they gave up on the name because the car really was a piece of what.
It supposedly, now I read this a while back about the original Toyota Crowns that were imported to the States. They were designed for Japanese roads at the time, and I think at the time they didn't have many long highways in Japan. So the car, I don't know if this is 100% correct, but what I read is that it couldn't maintain high speeds for long periods of time because the cooling system was inadequate, and they would overheat doing 55 for any amount of time, and that was their initial downfall. But they quickly figured out that Americans do a lot of high-speed highway driving.
Well, that's very similar to the post-World War II British cars. Again, those cars were not designed to be driven at high speed, and you'd only go 80 miles or 40 miles or 20 miles, and then you'd have to fiddle with oil and water and this and that. They didn't have the machining that we have.
Yeah, but London is known for its wet weather. I don't know how they could explain those electrical systems.
Well, you know.
You don't drive it when it's raining, so they never got to use them.
It didn't go uphill, as Ike Blonder said. The car wouldn't go uphill unless you got out and went up first.
Well, you know, Lucas Electrics, they themselves called it the Prince of Darkness.
You're right.
You always knew an MG owner when he was sunburned from the legs down.
It's funny. Brother.
So we're going to call it a night, guys.
All right, if you insist.
Good night, Gracie.
Sounds like it's time.
All right.
Good night.
Good night. Good night, everyone.
Everyone, sorry I missed so much of it.
Fare thee well. Good night, gang.
Good night.
See you again, Steve.
Yeah, it was great. Great seeing you guys, seeing you Rich, and all the guys. Really, thanks for inviting me. And yeah, we'll have to talk again soon. And I'll give Dave Terwilliger a call. Tell him that you've got a handy cam on the way to him. I think you'll be happy about that. I saw his name on the list tonight. He told me he'd probably be there with a black square, and he was. So whatever that means, he was trying to get in there.
Yeah, he was there on audio. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Great. That's cool. Okay.
All right, guys. Have a good night. Safe trip home.
Good night.